Hello everyone, welcome to What If Luffy Went on Search for His True Purpose in Life in Modern World movie. Before we start, please go support SlayerShane for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken characters' gender, but of course Luffy is a male. A young man can't find his purpose in life. He wanders, trying to be someone or something. He searches little by little among his friends for the answer. However, only one person can give him meaning. A story full of exciting adventures and drama. Prologue. Tell me, Luffy. A boy was sitting looking at the vast horizon in front of him. What's wrong, Law? Luffy responded to the young man who stood out for the absence of an arm. Is this what you wanted? Law asked as he placed his right hand on his left shoulder, looking at his partner. Yes, Luffy replied. Was it worth it? I asked, intrigued. Luffy smiled slightly. I will know in due time, he said. Luffy got up and took his things. Law sighed, and with Luffy's help, they both walked away from that place, a huge ocean with mountains that gave him an incredible view. Nice to meet you, Luffy. Law said goodbye to his friend. Likewise, Law, thanks for everything. Luffy smiled and they both bumped fists. 2 years before. Of Luffy. I woke up when I heard my alarm clock go off. I had moved into my new home a few months ago. I headed to the bathroom to wash my face. I don't know why I was so tired if I hadn't done much the night before. I'm going to work, Ace told me. He's my older brother, he clearly lives with me, he works half shifts as security. Have a nice day, Ace. After brushing and washing my teeth, I went down to the kitchen. Breakfast was on the table. I almost never wake up early enough to see or hear Ace preparing it, but it's always great to wake up and find the food ready. When I finished, I left my plate in the sink and grabbed my things to go to school. Then I would go look for a part-time job, since I had to help with the expenses, although luckily we didn't pay rent for the place where we lived. Life is good, I mentioned with a smile. I was studying a technical degree, meaning I would graduate with the skills of a professional, although I wouldn't earn much, but at least I would help my brother a little. I never thought I would have to work so young, I mentioned, something nervous. It was really fun, since now I had to improve my times. Financial problems. I nodded at my neighbor, friend, and colleague's question. Chapter 1. New Days. I never thought I would have to work so young, I mentioned, something nervous. It was really fun, since now I had to improve my times. Financial problems. I nodded at my neighbor, friend, and colleague's question. A few. How about you? I asked Robin. She was a few years older than me, a very quiet girl who also moved when we arrived here. She had finished her studies and was starting her independent life. It'll be my first day working as a librarian, she commented, and I was glad for that since the costs were surely high. She was a very responsible and calm girl, intelligent, or at least smarter than Ace and I combined. I see, if you find an interesting book, don't hesitate to bring it, she smiled. We both separated on the path. Meanwhile, elsewhere. It's too late. I said, looking at my watch. I quickly got out of bed and went to take a bath, so much so that I could only wash my hair a little. My sister again hadn't gotten me up as my test of responsibility, which obviously I wasn't going to fulfill, since I had to go to a party the night before. Why? I asked when I arrived at the dining room and saw my sister quietly eating breakfast. It's late, she said, sighing a little annoyed. I think if I'm paying half the rent for this house, I should at least get up so I can still have a job. I know, and that's your fault. I can't be late to work, I commented, annoyed. She laughed slightly. Yes, but if you hadn't gone to the party, you would already be at work, she commented with her friendly smile. My sister could be a bit annoying and heavy at times. Yes, but it was Vivi's birthday, something important that I couldn't miss, although I could have told him that I would see him later, but in his words, I have some news that no one should miss. I imagine. How is she? Nijiko asked. It was already late, so even if I ran like there was no tomorrow, it wouldn't change my boss's scolding. Very happy, you should have seen her. She was excited when Koza asked her to marry her, I commented happily. That night we all screamed like teenage girls when their favorite singer comes to their city. I imagine they had been in a relationship for about 7 years. For Nijiko it was something that had to happen. I wonder when she introduced me to her boyfriend. Indeed, she is possibly the first in our group, I said happily. My sister laughed lightly. It's not like you have a very large group of friends. She was right about that. My group of friends was about 3, as the saying goes, quality is better than quantity. Well, I have to go or Arlong will cut my salary. My boss was a grumpy middle-aged man, although very dedicated to his job as manager of a renowned restaurant in the city. Working as a waitress is perhaps not the best job to exploit your skills, my sister commented. I earn a good salary was my excuse. Being a waitress had opened up endless opportunities for me socially. I met all kinds of people. So I don't think it was a bad job. Of Luffy. I arrived for my first day of class. There weren't many people. It was a single class anyway, so I wasn't expecting a completely full room. Everything seemed to be going relatively normally. The class started with Mr. Crocus. Everyone was writing in their notebooks while he explained what we would do if we tried hard in this course. After a few hours of notes and some presentation talks, the course ended due to the teacher's business, so I took advantage of that time to go look for a job. "What's wrong with you?" Arlong greeted me with an annoyed look and surely angry at my delay. "Sorry," I said, looking at the floor, hoping he wouldn't fire me for being late for the 13th time. "Sorry won't bring back customers," he commented, already listening to the "you're fired." "I'm here," I said quickly. "Indeed, go and wait on the tables," I sighed at the end and ran to get my uniform and grab the menu cards. "Right away," I said, seeing a table asking for the menu. I quickly went over to serve them. As the motto of this place says, good service leads to good food. Of Luffy. Job experience. They asked me about my previous jobs. The truth is I've never worked for anything in my life. Chapter 2. Expectations. Of Luffy. Work experience. They asked me about my previous jobs. The truth is that I have never worked for anything in my life. None, I said with a smile. I had never come here to ask for a job, so that's why I've never worked. I see. But I know that if you give me the opportunity to work here I could. The man in front of me took my application. "We'll talk to you soon," and so began an interesting chain of "we'll call you soon." "I like it, leave your details and we'll talk to you." I again withdrew from another possible job. "Leave your details and we'll talk to you." That legend again. "I see, we'll get back to you." Different, but it was the same feeling of not being taken into account. "What experience do you have?" Another person in charge of hiring asks again. "None," I said without much enthusiasm. "Hey young man, I'm just a clown, laugh at my jokes or go to hell." I reacted immediately and saw a guy with clown makeup looking at me strangely. "How did I get here?" I asked when I saw that he was in the park. I was tired of being rejected from every job I applied to, so I ended up going for ice cream and buying some groceries for the house. I walked into our apartment and noticed Ace had already arrived. I dropped my things on the table and threw myself onto the couch. "This was a lousy day," I commented angrily. I was irritated and tired. "Did you get anything?" Ace asked as he packed his things. "Nothing, at least I passed my first exam," I said with some enthusiasm. "It's a test, it's worthless," he sighed in annoyance. "I know, anyway, the only thing left for me to do is keep going and see if I get lucky tomorrow," I commented as I settled down to see if I was sleeping right here. "Well, I got my pay today, so make sure you pay for the services tomorrow." I leave the money on the table and grab some things. "Well, is there anything to eat?" I asked quickly. "Check the refrigerator, I think there's some food." "I have to go," he said, and then left. "See you," I said goodbye. I had nothing better to do after eating. There was some meat and a couple of drinks, so I spent the time in the living room watching movies until I fell asleep. Of Ace. I returned after a meeting at the office. It was late at night and I was a little tired. Luffy had fallen asleep in the living room with the TV on. I turned it off and gathered some of the plates and glasses I had. I looked in the refrigerator and there was a list of things I needed to buy. I know it might be somewhat irresponsible of me not to scold my brother for his lack of manners, but he made up for it by making the food, both breakfast and lunch. I took the list and headed to my job. It wasn't one I liked at all, but at least it gave me enough to live on, eat, parent, and support my brother. I wonder what Sabo would have done. I looked at my computer. I was a little tired of so much work. I looked at my partner. His name was Sanji. He was a nice guy who was about to go work somewhere else. Apparently the office was not something for him. "What's wrong?" Sanji asked when he noticed me looking at him. "I was wondering if I could go with you to that place," I said, returning to my work at the computer. "To my new job?" he asked. "Yes, this is tiring me out a lot," I mentioned while running my fingers over my forehead, trying to massage it a little to calm myself down. "I'll go to a restaurant," he mentioned. "Sounds better than wearing this penguin suit every day," I said, laughing slightly. "Yeah, I guess so, although the pay is a little less compared to this one," Sanji mentioned. "Even though it's a lower pay, the truth is that a change would be good for me." "Be that as it may, I'm still under contract for a few more months. I was just looking for some options," I said, sighing. I had nothing to lose by asking if there was another vacancy, but it seemed I didn't have many options. "Don't worry, I'm sure you'll find a good job," he mentioned this one, sighing somewhat tiredly. "I doubt very much that I can find another one." "I hope so," I said as I returned to my routine of looking at the computer screen again while writing down numbers and records. I must get at least a raise. Chapter 3. Mentions. Of Luffy. "What?" I said, looking at the tall guy with a very funny little hat on his head. I hadn't paid attention to what he had said. "By request," I said, pointing at the paper. I don't need that thing, if you want to work just take those brooms and start cleaning the floor, said the man, and then took a couple of things and left. Now he was under the charge of a tall, well-built man with an angry look, very distant from the old man with the funny hat. I took the broom and the other cleaning utensils and started working in the kitchen. People greeted me and I did the same. Damn, every day they try to find a way to not hire young labor, he motioned while preparing the food. Everything smelled like first class, however perhaps it was due to how large it was, perhaps there was some kind of partition for classes or not, perhaps he was just a little hungry. That's immediate hiring, his colleague commented as he tossed me a sponge to wash the dishes. Maybe it's not the job I was hoping for, but this was better than nothing, and Ace really needed my help. He might not admit it, but the extra money will be nice. Luffy? I heard someone talking to me. I was cleaning the entrance of the place. I looked towards the origin of that voice, and I ran into Robin who was coming with some books. Robin? I wiped my eyes, not wanting tiredness to make me see things. What are you doing here? You're not taking classes at this hour, she commented, and I nodded. Yes, but lately I've been leaving earlier and decided to look for a job, I explained. She laughed slightly. I see, how are you doing? I sighed, somewhat tired. I know I had gone out to look for a job, but I thought I would get something like my brother's, although well I was never going to tell anyone since I don't know how to do much. Not bad for my first day, I commented optimistically. I hope things go well for you. I'll drop off some books at the library, and if I find you still here, we could go back together, she said with a smile. That seemed great to me. I could also stop by to pick up some things. Of course. Nami's pav. I was cleaning my last tables, we were finally about to close. It had been a hectic day, although that was good for everyone in the place. For my part I was quite tired, but it had been worth it. Nami, one last customer. I looked at Hachi who pointed out a girl who was coming in. What? I said with a tired attitude, sighing heavily. You know the rule, my partner mentioned. As long as they don't give the time, all customers will be served now, I replied reluctantly, but I took a deep breath, fixed my hair, and picked up the menu. Exactly, Hachi said, winking, thank goodness for the rules. I walked towards the table where the girl was. She was a young woman taller than me, with black hair, wearing a short purple jacket and tight black pants. Her height was perhaps due to the high-heeled boots she was wearing. I would say she looked quite reclining. Good evening, my name is Nami and I'm here to help you, I introduced myself kindly, handing her the menu. Good evening, I just want a coffee and a dessert, she said with a smile. Sure, I recommend our apple pie. I told her the recommendation regarding desserts, and she accepted. I left to tell Hachi what he should prepare. Right away, Hachi said as he went to get his things. Lucky me, it'll be quick at least, I said calmly. A few minutes passed before I finished placing the order. I was about to take the tray and noticed the floor cleaning boy talking to the girl. What's the new guy doing? I asked myself as I watched him chat with the diner. It wasn't like we weren't forbidden to do so. Probably her partner, I highly doubted, although they seemed to get along quite well. Either way I had to deliver the order. Of Luffy. So when the guy arrived he told me to take this broom and clean the floor, then I'll go wash the dishes, even if I end up breaking a few dishes. I told Robin how my day had been. She paid attention while waiting for her order. I guess I should be surprised, although knowing you those stumbles won't stop you, she mentioned. A short time later the waitress arrived, orange hair. Give me some credit, I can't do much of anything, I mentioned while cleaning the same place again for the 10th time. One day I'll bring you something to eat, Robin mentioned as she took a sip of her coffee. Chapter 4. Friends. Give me some credit, I can't do much of anything, I mentioned while cleaning the same place again for the 10th time. One day I'll bring you something to eat, Robin mentioned as she took a sip of her coffee. Don't worry, Ace always prepares something to eat, I mentioned. My brother was good at doing many things at once. I'm surprised he has time, considering he's an office worker, she mentioned. Now that I think about it, he usually gets up earlier, but I don't know if he actually has time to cook something. I have no idea, but your food is great, I mentioned, somewhat puzzled by the subject. Maybe it's a hobby, Robin replied as she took a small bite of her dessert. Anyway, we're about to close in a few minutes, I said while looking at the wall clock. She laughed lightly and took her order to the bar. I'll get this to go, she said. And how was your day? I asked Robin. She was somewhat intriguing. Her clothing could give an image that was contrary to her true personality. I'm not complaining. I'd say being a librarian is fun if you like reading, but I don't think you want to know how I organize my books, she said, giving me a look that I know you look. The truth is, maybe even my job wasn't something I liked, but I really needed the money, and you don't always work in what you want. I'm not saying it's boring, it's just that I look to the side of me trying to find the right word. Don't I look like I'm behind a book? She mentioned. I never said that, I thought music would be more of a hobby of yours, I mentioned, trying not to give it too much importance. I like flowers, I sighed. She was also very tolerant and patient with me since we were children. You haven't changed at all, I mentioned. The holiday season is over, she said with a smile. Nami's pav. I was on my way home after finally finishing my day's work and I noticed the store a few blocks from my house was still open. I thought I'd pick up a few things for the house, maybe something to have for dinner when I got there, and say hi to the attendant. Thanks for everything, Frank. A customer was saying goodbye. It's old Frankie, Frankie said, correcting the customer. See you. Hi Frankie, I greeted my friend. Oh, she's the prettiest waitress in the world, he smiles at her comment which, as always, was flattering. Did you see if Najiko arrived? I asked for my sister. I changed shifts today, as soon as I got in, he explained as he got ready to put some things in the store away. I see, I took some and carried them to the checkout. How's work? He asked. I'm not complaining, even though I'm close, I said smiling. He smiled back. You've been saving a lot for a long time. What are you planning to do? I asked. First, to take a well-deserved vacation, and second, to finally be able to pay off my debts, I said with a positive attitude, happy to be close to paying everything off and able to go on vacation. I see you're living on the edge, he said, laughing slightly. Yes, by the way. Of Luffy? The book? I asked, looking at it. It's one of my favorites, maybe you like it, I smiled nervously. It's not that I don't like reading, it's just that I don't really do it because I don't find many that are interesting to me. You may not be the most well-read boy I know, but it wouldn't hurt to have something on that head of yours, she mentioned, tapping me lightly on the head. Thanks, I said nervously, maybe if I ask her to read it for me it wouldn't be a bad idea, I wouldn't lose anything by asking her anyway, she's a great friend. I won't read it for you, that's why she's the best friend I have, she even knows what I think. Damn, I said as I put the book away. Luffy, Robin, we both turned to look. Oh, Ace, I greeted my brother. On the way home? We both nodded, the three of us headed home, a very good day indeed. Chapter 5. Acquaintances. Of Luffy. I've never liked effort. It's a bit complicated to explain. I understand that hard work is beneficial in the long run if you're looking for growth, but I really don't understand why it should be done. Stop thinking and work. I simply don't think anyone likes forced labor. Having someone tell you what to do is frustrating because why study if you're just going to end up like that? Either way, it's settled and I don't feel like I'm not there yet. Hey, do you want to eat? Asked the waitress. Yes, I said, somewhat surprised, I would never say no to a meal. You're Luffy, right? He asked for my name. Yes, a pleasure, I smiled happily. My name is Nami, I'm practically a veteran of the place, she said with great enthusiasm. I see. Do you like it here? I asked while trying some of the pasta he had invited me. It's nostalgic, my mother always wanted to open a restaurant and well, following her path, I'm working in one, she commented, apparently she had no difficulty in saying some personal things. Why not cook? I asked, since being a waitress isn't exactly something the restaurant can't get quickly. I'm not good at that, she said. No? I asked, somewhat confused. Do you like this? I pointed his pasta. More or less, now that I think about it, I didn't even ask or look closely at what he had invited me to, one day that could kill me. It's supposed to be something egg, but I don't know why it's green. I looked at the plate again. I thought this was pasta, I admitted, swallowing the food with some hesitation and nervousness. Exactly, I'm terrible at cooking, she said, throwing her own food. That must be illegal for someone. My brother is good at this, do you want to try? I mentioned while I went to get my food. And? This is amazing, she said as she tried what was obviously meat with some rice. You see? My brother is great at cooking, too bad he spends all his time in an office. I mentioned being a little disappointed. I mean, the money he earned was good, but I'd never seen him so miserable or sad in my life. What do you do for a living? I guess it's a company. I think he's an office worker, something related to business mention. Now that I think about it carefully, my brother could be selling drugs, and I can't even find him. Ace. What did you bring to eat? Sanji asked as he took a seat next to me. Something Luffy did, I'm surprised he doesn't get a job as a cook, I commented as I opened my container. Hey, not everyone has the touch for that, said an expert Sanji on the subject of being a cook. Do you want to try? I asked, giving him some of my food. Sure, he said. This is good, I commented after taking a bite of the meat. You see? My little brother is the best at cooking, maybe that's why he's working in a restaurant, I said, happy that now he could have a decent job. Meanwhile. Robin's pav. I woke up feeling something wet on my cheek. Apparently, I'd fallen asleep again. I wiped the table and left a bookmark on the page. I walked over to my bookcase and put the book away. I guess using reading to cure my insomnia isn't a good thing. I got ready to change since I'd be leaving for work in a couple of hours. A shower probably would have been better, but I didn't have time. However, that stopped mattering to me when I saw that someone was at Luffy and his brother's house. It was unlikely that Ace was back, his departure was a little later. Luffy had just started work and had adjusted to the restaurant schedule. There was no way that any of the brothers would be home early. Hello? The one who came out of the apartment was a woman with a headband around her hair. When I ran into her, she smiled and calmly left. I didn't know how to react at that moment, but I assumed that perhaps they had hired a cleaning lady or something like that, since there was no other explanation. Chapter 6. Revelation. Of Ace. I finished my work and noticed that it was approaching departure time. It had been a long day, and the truth is I was a little tired. Maybe Luffy had already arrived home. I could stop by for something for dinner. Sanji was also finished with his part of the work, maybe we would leave at the same time. What's wrong? Sanji asked as he sorted his papers. It's almost time, I mentioned while putting my things away. I see that. Where is the restaurant? He asked as he left the papers on his desk. Not too far if that's what you want to go see it, I mentioned, closing my briefcase. I just wanted to take a look, I said with a slight smile. Besides seeing waitresses? I said, sighing. I would never say no to a beauty, he said, letting out a cheerful laugh at my comment. You never change. Robin's Pav. Who was she? I was still wondering about that woman who left Ace in Luffy's house. Robin, what's wrong? My coworker asked. I was thinking about something, I said to Vivi, who looked intrigued by my thoughts. That's strange, you almost never think about things, he said mockingly. Yeah, I guess it's something very important, at least, I mentioned. Maybe I was thinking about it more than usual. What's it about? She asked now with some curiosity. It's about my neighbor's house, I mentioned while putting the label on the book. Did something happen? She asked in a somewhat worried tone. I want to believe not, I said calmly, although I was still a little curious. Why don't you ask them? I always hear you get along well with those brothers, Vivi mentioned, then took the books to be put away. You're right, I'll just ask him about it. I finished my shift after a few hours. Now I had taken a routine of stopping by a cafe at the place where Luffy worked. For some strange reason it was very comfortable to go home with Luffy. Although our talks are not entirely deep, I have never denied that Luffy has a certain charm when he tells his adventures. Even as children, I don't think much has changed. Flashback. Robin, 11 years old. Mom, who's the boy? I asked my mother, who introduced me to a boy. He was a little dirty. He had played alone in a small park. Don't be shy, say hello to him, she said with a smile. I don't want to, I said, hiding behind her. Hello. He greeted with a big smile, although his extroverted personality was very different from mine. I never imagined that we could be a duo of friends with synergy. My name is Luffy, nice to meet you, will you be my friend? He asked. What's wrong? He asked calmly. He looked at himself and noticed he was a little dirty. He dusted himself off and accidentally rubbed his hand over his face, painting half of his face a little. Why are you always smiling? I asked, holding back my laughter, since I looked like a domino. What do you want to laugh at? He asked, confused. You're welcome, Duresha Shishi. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw how he continued to look at me with that dirty face, unable to notice it for himself. You laugh in a funny way, Shishi, he said, laughing at my laughter. Luffy, wait. I was behind him, the festival had arrived, and my mother had invited Luffy to watch the fireworks with us. We'll be late, I want to see the fireworks, he said, running. He wanted to have the best view of the event. Luffy, you have to listen. I told him, taking his hand, a small gesture as a responsible friend, but something that made us closer, even though I had strange feelings just being by his side. Great. He seemed more amazed by wanting to see things, even so I was glad to know that she was the only friend he had. It was somewhat selfish of me. I loved knowing that there weren't many friends for Luffy. He seemed cheerful and happy despite that. Ace. He greeted his brother. Hey Luffy, is everything okay with him, Robin? I nodded at the question. The three of us watched as the starry sky began to light up with fireworks. Since that day I spent a large part of my life as Luffy's shadow, always by his side and keeping him out of trouble. Present. Luffy. I spoke to the dishwasher who was standing sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. He said, scared. I won't ask, but I need you to take out the trash, I said, pointing at some bags. Luffy, despite looking thin, was quite strong. Hachi could barely carry those bags. So, what's your plan for the future? I asked while trying to light a cigarette. I don't know, I'm just sure that I don't plan on littering for the rest of my life. He helped me turn it on. Now that I think about it, I know little about the new guy. Something on your mind? I asked as I blew the smoke elsewhere. I'm not one to make many plans, how are you? He said as he closed the trash can. Well, I'm thinking of taking a tour before leaving here, I said with a smile. The truth is, traveling and getting out of here is something I think anyone would want to do. Where are you going? Luffy asked. Anywhere, the world is too amazing to be stuck in this city, I admitted. He looked at the ground for a moment, threw down my cigarette and decided to go inside. You don't like East Blue, I mentioned this one. I'm not saying I'm not, I just think I could find myself somewhere else, I said, giving her a smile. Oneself, eh? Luffy's pav. Self, I'd never thought about it that much. Normally, I only do things to help others, but now that I look at things more closely, I don't know who can help me. What does it really mean to be yourself? I finished my shift and returned home. I was sure Ace hadn't arrived yet, so there wouldn't be much for dinner. I'm hungry, I said as I walked. It was then that I ran into someone, Robin, who seemed to be looking at my home with extreme caution. Chapter 7. Substitute. Of Luffy. Robin. I spoke to my lifelong friend. She got scared. What are you doing outside? I asked. She tried to act as she normally does, serious and calm, but it didn't take away my doubts. Listen Luffy, yesterday I saw a woman leave your house, she commented. I thought for a bit after that, but we don't have anyone coming, and I don't know any girlfriend of my brother. That. The woman, somewhat young I think, tall, was wearing a scarf as a headband, Robin explained. No idea, I said smiling. I'm sure she'll come in right now, and I thought I could catch her. Robin looked serious. It could be an intruder or someone spying on us. I stayed with Robin for a while watching, so I calmly decided one thing. In that case, let's go into the house, I said with a smile. Of course, Robin and I went to the door of my house. Indeed, someone was inside since the door was unlocked. Ace. They're already closed, I said sighing. Their brother works here. Not bad, Sanji mentioned while releasing smoke from his cigarette. What can I tell you, sometimes Luffy gives certain surprises, I commented happily. We both started walking, we went to buy some things, and we arrived at the street where Sanji would go home. Anyway, I have to go home. See you Ace, we both said goodbye. Surely Luffy was already home, so he would have made some dinner. I hadn't even gotten home yet, but I noticed Luffy walking in with Robin in the distance. Although she was a mutual friend, as a responsible older brother, I knew he might have finally crossed a second line with her. However, remembering what my younger brother was like, I couldn't even imagine Luffy doing that. I embarked on the race of my life as I could only imagine that Robin was the mastermind behind that intimate encounter, which makes sense. Luffy. Stop in the name of meat. I said entering the house. I looked at a woman who was putting some things in the refrigerator. Good evening, she greeted with a smile. Who are you? Robin asked fiercely. Makino. I looked at the woman, she was an acquaintance from my childhood. Do you know her? Robin asked, surprised. Hello Luffy, Makino greeted with a smile. How? Robin asked again. She's our caretaker, my grandfather met her when he was younger, I explained calmly. She had served us something to drink. I'm still young, Luffy, Makino said, reproaching me when I referred to her as someone older. I'm sorry, you knew her in the past, and she's the one who took care of us along with old Dan. What brings you here? I asked a reason for our old nanny's visit, so to speak. Well, you're probably wondering who leaves you food every day, she smiled. Wait, I said, reacting to that. Really? You two are terrible at cooking. How could you think one of you was cooking for the other? That makes sense, but if it's that way. Damn, I suppose he had a key to the house, after all, it was Grandpa who got it for us. So that's why you came this morning, Robin mentioned, realizing what he had seen. I do it every day. Impossible, I'm always on the lookout for that, Robin mentioned with some astonishment. If I wasn't careful, even Luffy would have noticed, she mentioned, laughing slightly. That's true. I think that's debatable, Robin mentioned, then laughed lightly. I'm sure you do, Makino admitted. Enough, I know I'm not the smartest person in the world, although it does explain food, I explained with a nervous smile. Robin, don't do it. Ace quickly entered, the three of us looked at him confused. Hello Ace, Makino greeted with a cheerful smile. Makino? Ace was surprised to see our caretaker. What am I not supposed to do? Robin asked, confused. Oh, nothing, I couldn't think of anything to say, I said smiling and then sat down. Look Ace, Makino is the one who has been cooking for us all this time, that made me think it would make sense. Wow, that explains a lot, I said laughing. Likewise, I'm glad to be able to see you, she commented with a smile. In fact, it's been a while since we've seen her. In a few words, she's like our nanny or a second mother, it's not how to say it. What brings you here? I asked curiously. Let's just say I'll have to stay this time. I accidentally lost my return ticket, so I can't go back. She commented with her typical smile, although somewhat embarrassed by the oversight of losing her ticket. Where were you going? Luffy asked. His grandfather arrived a few days ago at the house on the other side of the city. Grandpa? Luffy and I spoke in unison. I see, Garp is coming to visit, Robin commented with a slight sigh. That's right, he's excited to see you again, remember he finally managed to retire from his job, that gives him some time to visit you. Makino looked excited, and the truth is that having the old man was something good. That's great news, I suppose she'll be happy to see that we've made progress, Robin commented. Although she wasn't related to us, she had grown up with our grandfather, so she was practically a sister. That's right, in fact, at first it was my goal, to see that they got a job so I could live, after all, part of your studies ace are thanks to my effort. Makino reminded me that I had managed to graduate thanks to her overtime at work, I practically got this suit because of her. And I'll never know how to repay you, Luffy. I made my little brother bow. True, I know that the last time we spoke I had said that I would not study anymore, but now I am paying for my courses, and I work part-time, Luffy commented enthusiastically. The grandfather always thought that Luffy was a kind of hopeless case, however now he was achieving things on his own. It's good to see you both are maturing, Makino said happily. Chapter 8. Future Plans. Of Luffy. Growing up. It's funny, I don't feel like I've changed much, although I often feel like I just overthink things more than I should. What am I doing? I got up and got ready to go to my classes. I went down to see if Makino had prepared anything. Luckily Ace was still at home, which was a bit strange since he must have left early. Good morning, Makino greeted with a smile. She was serving breakfast. Good morning, are you coming in late today, Ace? I asked as I sat down. I took the day off, I notified the office, and everything was in order. I explained this. Well, it was rare for him to take time off, and I really think he even had a vacation that he never took advantage of. I see, well I have to hurry to go to my classes, I said looking at the clock. Makino didn't take long to wrap the breakfast. Then bring your breakfast. He handed me my food, I grabbed my things and started to leave. Thanks, see you later, I said goodbye to both of them. So what's the situation? Makino asked, taking a seat. I don't know, he contributes a little more than before, I think he's progressing, I spoke with a smile. Luffy was never really a very visionary young man, but now that he had grown up everything seemed to be going in a great direction. And how are you? I ask about myself. I feel good, my job is tiring me out, but from then on I think I'm on a great path, I commented to Makino. I'm glad to hear that. After what happened in the village, the truth is that I was afraid that you two wouldn't be able to continue forward. Makino spoke about the matter that brought us to the other side of the city. It wasn't a topic that I particularly liked. We do our best, after all you raised us well, I said with a smile. Even though things didn't turn out the way they should have, I think we're not a complete disaster like many people classify us. And Dan did a great job building his character. I choked on my drink. The screaming old lady wasn't so bad after all, I said nervously, remembering old Dan. Of Luffy. Okay, listen, I want you to clean the meat room, receive the package from 7, wrap a cooked chicken, and wash every potato and tomato that arrives, Nami explained in great detail while I was sweeping. Any questions, darling? She said mockingly. Wash the cooked chicken, get the tomatoes and potatoes from the 7th, and wrap the meat room. I have it, I quickly said the order in which everything was coming to my head. That's nothing close to what I said, idiot. He punched me. I got it, I said quickly. Things were a bit hectic that day. I ended up doing everything Nami did. Even though I was a cleaner, I had to support the freighters. Kilograms of meat. I'd say I didn't steal anything, but the truth is, the boss promised a good meal once everything was finished. Take this to the warehouse, Nami ordered, while marking the last thing on the list of products we would receive. Finally, I said, leaving the last box of things on the floor. Tired? Nami asked, offering me a drink. A little, I said while stretching a little. What? It was like 4 hours walking with heavy boxes. Even Hachi, who is the strongest, is exhausted. We looked at Hachi, who was struggling to breathe. He looked like a fish out of water. I'm tougher than I look, I said with a smile as I struck a pose like one of those men in muscle competitions. Yes, as you say, it's time for you to finish cleaning, he said, giving me my broom. Insurance. Nami's pav. You shouldn't ask too much of him, Hachi told me as he opened his drink. It's for his own good, and he doesn't seem to mind me doing heavier things, I commented as I watched Luffy go to the tables to start cleaning. Does it remind you of yourself when you arrived? Hachi asked. I looked at him again. I noticed how he swept calmly, without having anything else on his mind. It was somewhat strange for a boy with excellent presentation, but not enough to show any kind of ambition in being. Chapter 9. What do I want? Nami's pav. 3 years ago. Work? Asked an interviewing Hachi, who was really just doing that for protocol since he wasn't good at this. Yes, I said smiling. Oh my god, do you have any experience? I asked, seeing that I had only written my name on the application. None, he said calmly. I don't know, I hesitated first. If you hire me, I promise I'll always give my best, I said with a 100% attitude. What are you doing, Hachi? We just need people to wash some dishes, so put them in the sink. From that day on, I started working as a cleaner. Right away Arlog. Order the dishes. As a novice, I had to start down the rough road, bombarded by orders after orders of things I had to do to keep the kitchen in tip-top shape. Clean the kitchen. Days and days of cleaning the floor of all the oil that fell on it, not to mention the days and nights I had to stay to make sure it was left without a trace of spice. Wash the go to the sink. Damn, one not so busy day. Hachi was a bit down, he was cursing at the counter. What's going on? I asked, eager to know what was happening. My waiter left and I need someone, he said as he started dialing on his phone. That's when I knew my opportunity was calling. It was clear that I could be the only one in the restaurant who could do this job and then stand out. Do you want me to help? I asked for Hachi's approval. Please, if Arlog says something I'll take care of it. At that moment I changed my clothes and put on the waiter uniform, since there were no waitresses for some strange reason, but it fit me wonderfully. I started with the tables which had a number, but I had to assign my own system which worked for me for the main event, which was a night full of people who without beating around the bush, were kinky with me, but I didn't let that affect me, and continued delivering some sauces with my spit on the plates of people who tried to touch my ass. A job. Without a doubt, it was an exhausting day for my first day as a waitress, but it wasn't the last. Eventually, Arlong fired the waiter who always made me look bad, and I began working as one, knowing that the restaurant was about to expand, and with it, great things would come. End of flashback. Does he remember you when you arrived? Hachi asked. I looked at him again. I noticed how he swept calmly, without having anything else on his mind. It was strange for a boy with excellent presentation, but not enough to show any kind of ambition in being. A little, but I don't know what he wants to achieve, I said, looking back at Luffy who was simply sweeping without a care. Do you have to achieve something? Hachi asked. There is no person in the world who does not have a dream. I think it is something essential in us, I commented looking at him. Hachi always dreamed of making his famous roasted octopus accompanied by gyros which were delicious. Nami, sometimes we just enjoy life, we don't rack our brains thinking about what we'll have, we enjoy what we have. It was true, but Hachi didn't count on the fact that he had already achieved his dream and had set it in motion. I don't know if Luffy really enjoys anything, I commented, questioning that perhaps our street sweeper had nothing to enjoy, even the present he was in. Well, it's time to get back to work, he said, giving me the menu cards. When the shift ended I stayed late. Luffy had finished taking out the last bag, and so he took his things, without any interest, other than talking to him a little. I decided to accompany him with the excuse that he was missing a bag and I was going to help him. So where do you say you're from? I asked as I walked beside him. I never mentioned it, I'm from a village in the mountains, Fuchsia village, he said calmly. I see, and how did you end up in the Great One City? I asked, interested in knowing what his reasons were for being here, or at least finding out if he had any. My brother and I came here to study, but I was never good at it, so I left school and he finished to start working. After that I decided I couldn't be lazy at home, so I started my path to work and earn some money. I explained this with a few details. Chapter 10. What do I want? Part 2. I see, and what is it you want? I asked openly. Maybe it wasn't the best moment, but something would definitely change from now on. What do I want? Of Luffy. What do I want? I questioned Nami's question. Yes, I mean I don't think you want to spend it working as a simple dishwasher, she mentioned. My grandfather had said something like that many years ago when he was a child. Why not? I asked, trying not to give it too much importance. Luffy, you are still young, wasting your time is something you will regret. Those were the same words Makino said when she found out I quit school, the same ones Grandpa said when he spoke to me on the phone months ago. Yes, you're the third person to tell me that, I said with a slight smile. Why does that affect me so much? Huh? I expressed confused. My grandfather told me once, Makino said it too, I mentioned without thinking. I don't know them, said a confused Nami upon hearing the names he had said. Ah, well, my grandfather was a soldier and thought he would follow his path as an officer or something like that. Makino is like a mother, if you can say. She raised me in manners and always thought I would go far, I said while trying to keep my smile. However, something was starting to generate an internal evil and I didn't know exactly what it was. I guess that's not the case, she said. No, I think you're right, I said, feeling my tone break as if the strength in my feet were leaving me, feeling the internal abandonment of my own limbs. Hey, don't be sad. I'm not saying what you're doing is bad. I just think you should have bigger ambitions. Those words reminded me of something, a vague thought or memory that was tormenting me. I felt that small silence plunged me into a void. I had lost my way and my feet touched nothingness, making me lose control. I was falling quickly toward something I didn't know, but strangely I didn't react, like when you dream that you're falling, but with the difference that you're not sleeping and you're not about to wake up. Luffy? Upon hearing my name, I reacted quickly, my breathing was labored and I had drops of water on my hand. "Why?" I said in a broken tone. "Hey, I didn't mean to." Nami apologized. It was clear that her intentions were only to get close to me and talk like good coworkers. It was me who couldn't control her own problems and ended up breaking down in front of her partner. "It's okay, it's just I don't understand," I said, wiping away my tears. She looked at me, puzzled and confused. I could see it in her expression. "What?" she asked. "I don't understand. What do I want? I'm really trying to find something, but I can't find anything that helps me. Everything seems boring and I can't find myself in the world." For some reason, I ended up crying again. Why did I have to show my most pathetic side? And I was doing it with a coworker. What would she say about me? "I understand you," she said in a low tone. "Huh? I understand you. It's complicated to know what position you have in this thing called life. There are so many things you try, but none of them really fulfill you. It's as if you have everything in life at hand, and the only thing you can do is nothing when you feel well. How big the world is," she said with a slight blush, perhaps embarrassed by the fact of sharing her own point of view, but it really helped me regain my composure. "Yes, I went through that, although I enjoy my job, I really want something more inside," she said with a happier tone. "What thing?" I asked, interested in her answer. "Explore the world, travel, live freely, learning from others, not stagnate in something, but live freely." I could notice that with each word she became more relaxed, visualizing for herself the epicenter of what she wanted. Without seeing it clearly, she was looking for something that few of us dared to do. "Something like a hippie?" I asked, seeing that she was somewhat lost in her own words. "Something less spiritual, just find something that makes me feel connected to the world," she said sadly. "As an artist but at the same time a fan," I explained what I understood from it. "It's a bit complicated. Are you feeling better?" she asked, trying not to say too much. "Yes, thank you," and I tried to apologize for what had happened, but she interrupted me. "Don't apologize for that. I think you're brave for showing that aspect to a simple coworker," she said with a smile. "Aren't we friends?" I asked, smiling. "I guess," she said nervously. "See you tomorrow, Nami," I said happily. Chapter 11. Family Morning. Ace. "So with this I can aspire to a promotion," I told my boss when reading my monthly report. "Indeed, a little more effort and I'll be able to call you manager," he said with a smile. "Thank you very much," I thanked. "Continue your work, Ace," he said, giving me my documents. "Thank you, sir," I said, and then left his office. "Okay," I said when I heard my cell phone ringing. "Ace, do you know if Grandpa is coming?" It was my brother Luffy, who sounded somewhat worried. "I suppose, although I don't know exactly what the reasons for his visit were," I commented without thinking about the reason why he wanted to come. "I think it's because of that," Luffy commented. "I got a bit serious about it, otherwise things wouldn't end well for us." "Are you home?" I asked quickly. "No, I'm at work and I'm thinking of going to the bookstore to help Robin with an errand," he said, without giving the matter any importance. Anyway, he was very resistant, so even if Grandpa did something to him he would resist. "Don't come back until I call you, remember that Grandpa is very aggressive," I reminded him of what the old man could do. "Understood," he hung up. Luffy. The restaurant closed early due to inventory and cost issues, so I decided to go to the library with Robin. Apparently, she needed some help with some things, and even though I don't really like books, I think it doesn't hurt to be in a place full of them. When I arrived, I saw Robin with a cart full of books. He greeted me and continued on his way, while I left my things behind the counter. "Hello," I greeted happily. "I'm glad you came," she replied, smiling. "Well, how can I help you?" I asked excitedly. "Well, let me finish this and we'll go to the warehouse," he replied calmly. "Okay." Robin's pav. While I was putting the books back on their respective shelves, I looked sideways at Luffy, who was simply staring at the ceiling, perhaps concentrating on counting the number of pieces in the library. He really wasn't here to be of much help. It was Ace who told me to keep him somewhere until he got off work. After a few minutes, I knew Luffy would get desperate, so I went with him to the warehouse. There, I asked him to carry some boxes for the reception desk. They were some encyclopedia and history books I'd been waiting for a long time. "Where do I leave it?" he asked, still holding the box in his hands. "This is fine," point to the dream. "Anything else?" he asked with his typical smile. "Yes, taking advantage of your presence, I think I'll make some arrangements to the library's computer center." I thought about the arrangements I had pending in the room. Maybe I wouldn't finish them all, but I was sure that at least we would cover a lot of ground with Luffy nearby. Of course. When we arrived, the place was in disarray. Luffy grabbed some bins and brooms, and I went for some bags and started cleaning the entire room. After a few hours, I could see the great progress we had made, as the tables and computers were clean and ready to use. "Great job, Luffy," I said with a smile, sighing somewhat exhausted. Wow, and to think that working here is boring. He mentioned this, after a while he realized his words. Don't say you're boring, I mean the job seems boring, and I think I'm making it worse, right? She said nervously. Yes, I said, holding back my laughter. Sorry, he said sadly. It's okay, I know you didn't mean to offend me, I said calmly. We returned to the entrance when I noticed a girl who looked familiar. Luffy. Chapter 12. Dualities. Nami's Pav. I was walking down the street with some books in my hands. I needed to return them today because my sister had forgotten, and paying for the late payment is something I don't want to do. The big library gives you days in advance and after, but I think my sister missed both. I sighed tiredly, entered the place and noticed that some people were reading, some were studying. Nami? I heard someone's voice, and when I turned around I realized it was Luffy, who was accompanied by a girl. I remember. What are you doing here? I asked confused. I don't think Luffy was someone who liked books. Ah, right, this is Robin, my friend. Robin, this is Nami, my friend, she said, introducing me to her friend. She was tall with a dark complexion. Did you see him cry? She said quickly. I mentioned doubtfully at the question. Robin? Luffy quickly exclaimed. Luffy, you can't just be someone's friend just because they see you crying, Robin complained to Luffy, who laughed nervously. Was that what he did to have friends? If so, even for a little, it would mean that it's not the first time he cries for something like that, or at least he's cried for other things. Actually, we work together at the restaurant, I hurried to explain. I didn't know Robin, but I did know Luffy, and although he could be someone strange, he is good. Oh right, you're the waitress, right? Robin pointed out. That's right, I said, smiling. Naiko, Robin, nice to meet you. She extended her hand to me. She was an elegant girl, perhaps educated and a professional in training. Nami, I introduced myself. See? We're all friends, Luffy said with a cheerful attitude. Luffy continued his work of helping Robin, although after a while she invited me to have a drink in the library's conversation room. So she began to speak. Oh, I didn't know he was your, I mentioned, thinking the obvious when I saw Luffy and her. What? Luffy? No, well, maybe I'm wrong for thinking that. But you're interested in him. I mean, recently you seemed a little uncomfortable or authoritarian when I introduced myself, I explained calmly. I had concluded it in the few minutes I had known her. It's not that, it's just that, well, Luffy isn't exactly the kind of boy who limits himself with friends. I mean, he's very nice, and that's what brings him some problems, Robin explained calmly. She didn't know Luffy very well. At first glance he seemed like a simple boy, but after seeing him in a somewhat depressed and sad state, perhaps he's someone more complex than he lets on. Do I look dangerous? I ask Robin what he thinks of me. With what you deduced, I consider you to be very intelligent, she said with a perceptive look. I felt like she had analyzed me from head to toe. Like you, it seems I don't know what kind of way of getting to know a person this is, but it certainly seems to me that there is a tension that I can't describe. Robin's Pav. Like you, it seems, she mentioned. I couldn't hide a giggle. Wow, this is a bit uncomfortable, I commented, trying to ease the tension in the environment. I think that's what happens when you don't speak clearly, she said. I don't like Luffy, he's a good boy, but look at Luffy, who was organizing the books, although at first glance they were in disarray and not classified properly. But you don't want to see him with someone either, she commented. It's not that either, what happens is that his family is somewhat complicated. Luckily for us, he is a strong boy. That was what I admired about Luffy. He was strong in his own way, somewhat clumsy, but always determined to improve and learn. I highly doubt that, perhaps those problems, which I have no idea what they are, affect him in some way. Nami explained her point of view. Do you look like an expert? I asked. I'm a very intuitive person, she explained. So I guess you're good, I smiled calmly. Why all the fuss with Luffy? Nami asked, somewhat intrigued by what was happening. Ask him yourself, he's a different person when he talks about his family. I gave him some advice to talk to him, at least they would become closer than just knowing that Luffy cries. Of Luffy? It was a somewhat awkward situation, Nami commented after she finished helping Robin. What are you talking about? I asked confused. I was getting a little hungry, so we went out to find a food stand. From Robin, she commented as I ordered something to drink. She's very nice, I commented, still not understanding what she meant. I don't doubt that. What happens is that she seems to be very close to you with all that about her protecting you, she said. Well, the thing is that she knows my family a little and knows that they are not very good to us, I explained a little, although I didn't give many details. Does that mean everyone in your family is dysfunctional or what? She declared, although it may be true I couldn't say that we just had priorities. I wouldn't say that, just that they are demanding to get something. My grandfather always dreamed that I would enroll in some place for soldiers or navy, I said, remembering my grandfather's shouts of enthusiasm when playing in the park. I guess none of that was something you wanted. I nodded at what he said. Exactly, although I don't really know what I want, I said again. You already told me that. So, what do we do now? I asked as I took a sip of my drink. Do you have any plans? It was a good question. It was a quiet night. Ace told me I should come back until he let me know. Maybe Grandpa didn't arrive, but Makino is home. They land calling Luffy, I reacted, and saw Robin arriving with us. What's wrong? I asked. Come on, I'm inviting you to my apartment, Robin said calmly. I guess it wouldn't hurt to go, after all going home without knowing how everything is would be bad for me. Nami's pav. So your neighbors, I said when I saw that Luffy literally walked up a couple of stairs to get to his house and then came back as if nothing had happened. I think being sneaky isn't his strong suit. Well, they were looking for an apartment when they were just about to arrive, Robin said as she opened her door. I see. Good news, my grandfather is not here, Luffy said with a smile. Chapter 13. Tastes. Luffy's pav. Don't eat my entire pantry, Robin said as I stood in her refrigerator. Just a little, I said while taking a dessert. I see you have a lot of books, Nami mentioned while looking at Robin's bookshelf, since I can remember she was always a book eater. Some are collectibles, she declared. Novels and stories, they look like encyclopedias, Nami said taking a book. Some are, I like seeing them getting to know each other. Robin likes books before, I mentioned while enjoying the dessert. I like it, my hobby is making cartographic plans, Nami said as she opened a book. I looked at Robin looking for a short answer to what Nami had said. Maps. Ah. So why is your grandfather a reason to be afraid? Nami asked. Well. Luffy dropped out of school and didn't have a job until recently, Robin explained briefly. I see, then you should face it, I mean you already have a job and you're not doing badly at it, Nami said, somewhat doubtful of the situation I found myself in. My grandfather was a war hero, like his grandson he expected more from us, maybe more from me, I said while finishing the dessert. Us? He's talking about his brother, Robin explained. Ace has made progress, it's just that now I feel somewhat stuck, but my grandfather doesn't understand those kinds of reasons, I said as I sat down. You know, your grandfather should have a talk about a person's patience and progress, Nami said as she put the book back in its place. Garp is a man of actions, not words, Robin said. My grandfather's name scared me a little. What does your grandfather want? Nami asked. Luffy? Ace knocked on the front door of Robin's house. What's wrong? I asked Ace. He's on his way, I knew he was referring to our grandfather. What do I do? I asked worriedly, he thought for a moment, but apparently he had no idea or plan. Just a warning, Robin, Ace looked at our friend, who just gave a. The last time I got involved in your family's business, my mother had a lawsuit, Robin reminded us. We both looked at each other and nodded, somewhat embarrassed. Right, who is she? Ace asked looking at Nami. It's Nami, my friend, I introduced her enthusiastically. Did you see him cry? Ace asked. Yes, I understand, he is sensitive, what is all the fuss about his grandfather? Nami asked confused. We both looked at each other and thought about how to explain it. We don't know, he's always unpredictable, sometimes he comes to see if we're still working, it's almost always the same, we said calmly. Oh my god, what kind of family do you have? Nami asked confused. The dysfunctional functional one, Robin answered for us. It's like when something fails but succeeds, Ace explained. Right, I guess before I get into trouble I should go home, Nami said, grabbing her things. Luffy? Ace. Ace and I froze when we heard our grandfather's voice. Your grandfather? We nodded. Damn, we said at the same time. I'll go out and say hello, Robin stood up calmly. Wait, Robin. I stopped Robin. Your grandfather is looking for you, not me, she explained as she went straight to the door. Now what do we do? Ace asked. I'll go out and go home, Nami said, following Robin. Your orange-haired girl. Chapter 14. Orders. Nami's pav. Well, now I see that you are fine, the man commented, although it didn't seem like it. Garp looked like a professional despite his strange personality. Hello, Grandpa, both brothers greeted at the same time. Show respect, I've come to visit you, they both bowed. It's good to see you, Mr. Garp, Robin greeted with a smile. Nice to see you too, Robin, how have these boys been behaving? He asked. You are on the right track. That's good to hear, anyway I see there's a new face, I realized he was referring to me. My name is Nami, I introduced myself a little nervously. Nice to meet you, Nami, I'm sure you haven't heard of me, so Garp, Commander ex-commander, grandfather of these two misfits of society. Both brothers didn't understand the word misfits, but I wouldn't consider them to be that, although I don't know them at all. Grandpa? Both boys demanded. Just kidding, so Nami, which of my boys is your boyfriend? The three of us were perplexed by the question. None, I said quickly, blushing slightly. Do I look interested in any of them? Oh, too bad, I'm sure none of them meet your standards. Anyway, I brought food, he said, and then took the two brothers to his house. Luffy's pav. What? Nami was taking her things. Well, I'm hungry, but I just wanted to clarify that what my grandfather said could have been. I tried to explain the situation so that there wouldn't be any kind of misunderstanding or something that would make him not talk to me again. In bad taste, yes, but it's okay, she said while gathering her hair. Are you sure? I asked somewhat doubtfully. Hey, I don't understand your family and I don't intend to, so let's leave the subject aside, she said, walking towards the door. Clear. Well, it's time to go home, she said goodbye. See you. Our grandfather left a couple of books on the table, Ace, and I decided to read them. Between some books and page after page Ace jumped a little. Ah, he said. What's wrong? I asked as I continued reading the book. You can see in your eyes that you feel something, he commented. You may not notice it yet, but at least as your brother I can assure you, he said, leaving the book on the table. That night I finished reading about 3 books, each about 340 pages long. I was very bored, and although reading isn't something I do often, Robin has taught me how to handle it. It's incredible how she devours encyclopedias in one night, and not just one, but several. Hurry up. Arlong said as he ran to the kitchen to clean the dishes. Plates, glasses and stuff like that, I said to myself as I washed each plate. They're onions, Nami said as she threw me a basket with lots of onions. Look at that, Hachi said, wiping his eyes. What's going on? Everyone came closer to see what it was. It's Donquixote, Arlong mentioned. What? Everyone was surprised. Get to work, Nami, this is an important client. He gave her a menu and she got ready to go serve the man. Who is it? I asked. A mobster, technically the owner of a candy company, said one of the workers, explaining who the seated subject was. An entrepreneur who really isn't one. They ended up summarizing everything for me. I sighed a little and went back. Chapter 15. Improvement. It's a pleasure to serve you. What are you going to order? I asked the gentleman who was looking at the menu I had given him. He thought about it for a moment and I felt that look that every customer gave me, but no matter how uncomfortable it was, I had to maintain a smile and maintain a proper posture. Give me a coffee and the cost of this place, said the man giving me the menu. The coffee and what? I reacted, confused. I want the owner now. Yes, I said, taking the letter and walking towards the kitchen. Of Luffy. Nami arrived with an expression as if she had been given confusing news. What did he order? Hachi asked. The coffee and the restaurant, she said dryly. The full menu? Said a confused cook. No, he literally wants the restaurant, he's going to buy it, Nami said with some confusion. The cooks were surprised and Hachi looked at Arlong, who looked thoughtful. The boss won't sell this place, he did it with effort and sweat, Hachi commented, defending the position that Arlong was possibly going to take, this path towards Mingo. He can't do it, I said as I watched the boss go with that guy. He's a mobster, Nami commented. But the law can't allow that kind of action. It requires the potential seller to offer the property so that a buyer can make an offer. It's against the law to make an offer, and even more so if it comes with threats, I explained while remembering that paragraph I read in that book I had taken from the bookstore when Robin was arranging the others. Are you a lawyer? Hachi asked. I read it yesterday in a book, I said, looking at everyone somewhat confused. You memorized a book in one day? I shrugged, disinterested. I think, I said with a smile. Boss. Arlong arrived and left his hat on the bar. Nami's pav. How do you know about labor laws? I asked Luffy. I read it in a book, he replied. That doesn't explain it. I read about cartography a few years ago about the model, I said, but Luffy spoke when I mentioned the model. Traditional trace from 1870, when a topographical mapping was done, and how do I remember that? Apparently Luffy wasn't a fool. It's strange considering that scene at a high academic level. You say you've never played in a university classroom, I said, amazed by what he said. I don't know, maybe in some other life I was a genius who challenged a student council, reference to a school story fanfic of One Piece. I mentioned this one. You got that from a story, I told her. I remember reading something similar about a boy and the president, a cute and strange romance. Probably from Wattpad. Sure, now genius, what is my boss supposed to do? I asked about the situation we were in. Legally I reject, but from what everyone says, the money must be a huge sum, Luffy mentioned. Arlong approached us. Almost 4 million, everyone was amazed. That was a lot of money, and it was enough for us to run 2 restaurants. Accepted, boss, with that you can make a new restaurant, I told him excitedly. And? Is this what you want, Mr. Arlong? Luffy asked. The money is good, the place is a bit old. Everyone looked at the restaurant, maybe remembering the good times they had here. Hey, you can't come here just putting money on the table, we all reacted quickly. Luffy approached the man who stared at him. Are you the boss, kid? He stood up to stand in front of Luffy. No, but understand that this place has a meaning that money can't buy, Luffy said with a firm stance. I don't care about your feelings, I want this place. Doflamingo quickly took out a gun and pointed it at Luffy. Everyone was paralyzed, they thought Luffy would faint or something like that, but he stayed standing. And I don't care what you want, Luffy said without hesitation. Chapter 16. Mutual Improvement. Of Luffy. It's funny, it's been a long time since I've remembered my childhood. It's not that it was difficult or bad, it's just that when I look back on it, I can't help but feel those nostalgic emotions. Makino bringing food, the old man from the island telling stories, and my grandfather coming home from work so we could enjoy a conversation based on fistfights. Why are some things a bit blurry to me? It's a really strange thing, it's like part of that childhood was just a black screen and then it started from where I remember. On the other hand, there is the feeling of death. I see a guy pointing a gun at me and the last thing I feel is the fear of dying. Looking at him closely, the guy is certainly dismayed. I suppose he doesn't meet people whose expression is null when they have a gun pointed at them. It's something I don't understand, so it's not like I want to try to understand it now. However, looking at the gun is something that brings back certain memories. Well, I reacted instantly, I had forgotten that I was in front of a guy who was pointing a gun at me. Right, I said, somewhat confused. Are you the boss here, kid? The guy asked. No, but you really should think about it once or twice before making an offer like that, I commented, taking a seat. The guy did the same while still pointing the gun at me. Yes, of course, I see that you are not as normal as other people would be, he said in a calmer tone. I guess. Let's see, a young guy I suppose is poor since you work here, I commented while he leaned on the chair. I'm not poor, I just don't study so I have to work, I commented, not giving importance to his classist comment. Correct. What were you doing? I asked out loud. How did I get into this chair? Interrupt me, you don't seem like a smart guy, at least not completely stupid, he commented while looking at me with a strange look. And you are strange, I commented looking at the guy, I remember his name was Mingo or something like that. Interesting, you have no manners, but at the same time you have a sensor that alerts you to how dangerous I am, however I point the gun at myself. I don't care, I said disinterestedly. The boss has very comfortable chairs for the customers. Exactly, that's something that intrigues me, Kid Mingo commented. I guess everyone begs you when you point this at them, I said, taking the gun. The gun is a gun, you leave your life in someone else's hands, he said as he returned the gun to the table. My grandfather says that only one decides what to do with his life, I commented as I leaned back in the chair. Yes, but when someone has this, there are only two options. Technically you can't kill me here, you'll ruin the place if there's a scandal, second if you do it the old man won't sell you the place, and third, it's not like my death or rather my life is worth much. I explained the reasons why I believed that killing me or even thinking about doing it was something stupid. Interesting theory, but it might not be something applicable to life, don't you feel intimidated? Mingo asked. I don't know, I don't feel like I'm going to die today, nor do I feel like I'm going to die today, I said while playing in the chair. Nami's pav. What would you do, boss? I asked, somewhat worried. I'll sell this place, he said in a determined tone. But. Family, no more of that, you are important to me, if more family jokes be any problem. I'm glad to hear that, Hachi said with a smile. Then we have a deal, said Doflamingo, who stood up. I'll give you a little more for your trouble, the mobster said with a smile. Fair enough, as long as it gives me a little time to vacate, my boss commented in a somewhat subdued tone. I'll send you everything you need. The guy took a menu and left quietly, he didn't say anything else after that. Things are a bit strange, but the truth is I don't know what Luffy said to him or what they talked about. Chapter 17. Love and what its letters carry. Of Luffy. Although it may sound a bit strange, the truth is that having your job bought is something very rare to see or experience. Be that as it may, I'm now just a guy without a job, although the extra pay was good for Ace and me. Meanwhile, Nami started looking for a new job, now that her boss was starting to look for a new location for his business, although it seemed like it wouldn't be nearby, but rather a little closer to the city center. She'd have to wait a while for that to start though, so we both started looking for somewhere to work. And another request at the bank, Nami said, letting out a tired sigh. I'm hungry, I mentioned while touching my stomach. Let's get something to eat, I can't stand walking in the sun, she mentioned while looking at the entrance of a small place. Will you continue looking for work like this? I asked once we had taken our seats at the restaurant. I don't see the problem, she said as she raised her hand to ask for something. Maybe I feel like business isn't something I like, I mentioned while looking at my resume. How do you plan to look for or get money? She asked. Well, I really have no idea, I spent a little money on a lottery ticket for 30,000 and luckily I won, I said while showing him a photo of me where they were giving me the check for the amount I had mentioned. What? I asked, seeing his expression of astonishment. Don't think about living off gambling, she assumed. I quickly denied. I'm good at that, I said with a smile. Now you look at me ugly, I mentioned, seeing Nami's expression, who couldn't stop looking at me. How good are you? I asked with a smile and a doubtful look. So, that. Nami's pav. Luffy showed me that he had won a prize, which, despite the short odds, was enough to pursue one of my hobbies. We went to a small betting house, and I took the remaining money and some of Luffy's share and went to the cashier. I want 1,000 chips, I said as I handed him my money. With pleasure. Really? Luffy asked with some doubts about it. Hey, if you're going to be a coward, you can't play, I said as I took my chips and went to a machine. I'm not a coward. Then let's see if we can win some money. Luffy gives him half of my chips and goes off to look for a game where he could double my winnings. Although I spent a lot of time here on the weekends, the truth is that I wasn't lucky enough to win frequently. Identify. Look at Luffy, who just a few minutes ago left with 500 pieces and came back with many more in his hands. How? I asked, stupefied. Well, I turned that lever and won, Luffy said, pointing at a machine. If that's obvious, I say, how is it that you can win? I quickly walked towards the machine so he could see how it did all that. Well, I pulled that lever and when I pointed at the lever, took a couple of coins and put them in to try my luck. Oh my god, well now we have at least a little extra money for my week, he said after losing about 1,000 just to find out if that machine had some defect that in the end it didn't. Don't you want me to lend you money? Luffy asked. No. As friends, without interests, he said with a smile. Well yes, I said when I heard that there would be no interests or anything involved. How fast? He said, surprised. Look, if it's an interest-free loan, I'll accept it. I'll pay you back someday. I said with a smile. He just smiled back and we both went to get something to eat. How do you like girls? I asked Luffy, who was drinking his drink and stopped when he heard my question. I don't know, he said dryly. I said, making a cross with my fingers. Why? He asked, confused. Come on, Robin, I don't think I'm your type, I mentioned while eating my food. He just looked at me briefly. Maybe he didn't like the idea. She's just a friend, he said clearly and directly. Come on, you're going to tell me that in all those years she and you never agreed on anything, I mentioned while taking a sip of my drink. No. Wow, how boring, I mentioned, somewhat disappointed. She always visited us, but he commented somewhat complicatedly, as if there was something hidden in that story. Let me guess, I said with a smile. What? Said Robin. I guessed correctly. Maybe it wasn't anything serious, but I think it left a small mark on Luffy's heart. And? Wow, how did you react? I asked as I took a bite of my food. I thought it was a game. What? I said, confused, almost choking on laughter. Yes, I mean it seemed like they were both happy and I was thinking I could play. This of three, I said, then I started laughing at how funny and innocent Luffy was. Don't laugh. Have you had that with someone? I asked about more intimate relationships. Luffy froze and dropped his food. I want to eat, let's not talk about it, he said, returning to his food. Come on, you have a nice body, you look good, some girl must have wanted to do it with you, I said looking at him closely, not that I liked him, but come on, any girl with half a brain would realize that Luffy looked like those innocent boys who do spectacularly in bed. Maybe it was just an assumption of mine, who knows. Do you want to go somewhere after eating? Insurance. Chapter 18. Night after night. I raised to 7, Luffy said as we increased the number of the bet on the cards. The thing is simple, according to Luffy. Luffy suggests that in a game of poker you don't win by playing cards, but by reading the person in front of you, who is your opponent, and if you dominate the man, you dominate all his actions, which will always play in your favor. Winner. In another game, Luffy explained to me that being a girl at a gambling table, no one hesitates to give me an advantage, however, it is only given to one game since what they seek is to get me into bed. I bet on red, Luffy said confidently in the spinning marble, however everything in my head indicated that something else would fall. 100 grand. Luffy said on the 21st, having doubled the bet 3 times in a row and losing once. Winning big in casinos draws attention, so you should always lose big or keep betting. I want a drink. I said as I watched Luffy playing Jack and winning a lot of money, then decided to lose a little on the machines. -3 drinks for the girl. More drinks to keep the atmosphere going. Nothing was going wrong, in fact tonight was incredible. I had never had so many chips to exchange in my life, at least I had better luck than the blonde with huge tits who was losing and losing, not to mention that she had been drinking since we arrived. Her companion had a little pig or what looked like one. I want to see a 7. Luffy rolled the dice, and we won the not inconsiderable amount of 300 grand. Yes. I shouted with excitement. Luffy's pav. My head hurts. We had stayed in a hotel, the same one that had the casino. There were liquor bottles and clean dishes on the floor. I sat up in bed and stared at the floor, absorbing the trauma of having woken up. What happened yesterday? I got out of bed and walked to the shower to freshen up a bit. It didn't take me long to realize that Nami had to be with me, otherwise something could have happened to her. Nami? I quickly shouted, leaving the bathroom with a towel covering my lower half. What? Nami jumped up from the bed. She had woken up and not long ago. Where are we? She asked with obvious confusion. After looking at her closely, I noticed two things that took me out of my mind for a moment. In a room, how do you feel? I asked. First of all, we had both been in the same one. After that she got up and she had nothing but underwear on. Well, I think so. It's a little cold. When she looked at him, she realized that he wasn't wearing anything else. Why don't I have any clothes? She asked. I raised my face and threw a towel at her. Put something on. Wait, what is this? I remove the sheet and we look at a strange thing on the bed. Nami's paw. Hours earlier. I've never felt anything like this in my life. She drives me crazy when we're alone. Luffy and I were singing karaoke while I had a bottle in my hand. We continued our party through the hotel corridors until we arrived at the room we had reserved at the last minute and at the hotel. It was an incredible gambling win and we both decided to celebrate in the room with food and drinks, like two great friends. The bottles arrived and we continued drinking. I grabbed some cards and played a game of forfeits. Take off your shirt. He said this as we continued the game, and hours passed until I had no more clothes left and I could only take off Luffy's pants. This sucks, I said as I threw my cards. Luffy won again. I'm feeling tired, he said as he put down his cards. Luffy stood up and I stared at his crotch. He was almost naked with a guy and didn't seem to have any reaction or intention other than to mess with me. Hey. Can you cover yourself? He said as he turned around. Why? Does it bother you in any way that I'm like this? He moved away slightly as I approached provocatively. He grabbed my shoulders and I noticed his red embarrassed expression. Seeing him sad made me feel some tenderness and I got a little closer, however he turned around and we ended up kissing, which was only the beginning of what happened in that room. Present. Is this a condom? I wanted to say there was only one, but there were three. I got up and it hurt to even walk. At least I'm responsible. I looked at Luffy and could only bring my hands to my head. Chapter 19. Deals. Is this a condom? I wanted to say there was only one, but there were three. I got up and it hurt to even walk. At least I'm responsible. I looked at Luffy and could only bring my hands to my head. It's broken, Nami said, throwing the piece of rubber into a trash can. My grandfather told me that in times like these, I should apply the things that I have to do as a man, I said with a direct tone and as serious as possible. Just. God, it's me again. I bowed down to pray because I really couldn't bear the fact that I may have ruined my young life by chaining myself to the creation of a new life, which wasn't bad, but I'm young to be a father. Idiot, just because it's broken doesn't mean I'm going to get pregnant, she said as she covered herself with some sheets. So I'm sterile. I remained thoughtful about that possibility. Oh my God, how come you're not a virgin? She asked. I didn't understand much of the question. After that, we both left the hotel. We had money and Nami didn't seem affected by what had happened. Do you want to ask something? Nami sighed as she stopped. Yes, we're supposed to be something, right? I asked somewhat timidly, although things were possibly not the best, it wouldn't make me lose my doubts. Please, it was just one night, there's nothing romantic about our relationship, she said, starting to walk again. I see. Wait, are you? She turned to look at me, seeing her face made a blush appear on my cheeks. Well, doing this is supposed to be something special, and I feel bad knowing that maybe I didn't enjoy this even worse. I feel bad about the fact that I was the one who was with you, I said, embarrassed. Not that I felt less or anything like that, just that maybe she was expecting someone better than me. Again, not because I felt less, just that maybe in terms of expectations, well, I did feel a little less. Am I too much for you? Nami asked me. But it's not something that friends do, I said, explaining the situation. I see, try to think about this please, she said, returning to her path. For some reason, after knowing that we did that, my heart did not stop beating every time I saw her, even my gaze focused on her butt. For some reason I found it attractive, not only that, her in general. Nami's paw. He looked like a child, a confused one, and certainly cute, since he seemed nervous just walking now, but I understood what he meant. I was being selfish now that I think about it. I've tried like crazy to avoid the topic because the last thing I want is to give him some kind of wrong answer and I want everything to stay the same. Besides, I don't remember much from that night. But I reacted quickly to that memory, that soft voice, almost like a whisper, which I heard so close to me. Us. As I walked I could only hear that soft voice. I remember clenching my hands and tearing at it back as I felt what it was like. Nami. I woke up from my dream. Luffy stopped me from crossing the street. I looked at him and all I could imagine was him with nothing on. I quickly regained my composure. It wasn't that easy. I mean, just because I'd had a good time didn't mean I was going to get into a relationship. Are you okay? And? When Luffy asked about me, I just focused my gaze on his hands, remembering that those same hands ran over my body, caressing my skin and rubbing my breasts. Why was I thinking about this? Us? Luffy? You? I just felt like I was carrying Luffy against a wall. I didn't care what people passed by. I just wanted to get rid of the curiosity of feeling his lips. I wanted to remember how they tasted. I want to make a deal with you, I told him before he spoke. Chapter 20. Relationship or complication. What? Luffy said confused. I walked away from him. It's okay, maybe our friendship is moving toward something more. I don't want you to take it so seriously. I don't want you to change your way of acting. In short, don't think of me as something different, I explained while trying to hide my blush. I was a little nervous about what I had done. It's not like I had never kissed someone. I just need you to be clear about that, and I'll do the same, do you understand? I said, trying to make myself believe the words. But you kissed me, Luffy reiterated with some nervousness. Yes, you can do the same, but you'll probably have to ask permission. I don't know, let's just do our best so that this whatever it is doesn't get any more complicated, I said as I continued on my way. I understand. Now, I have to look for a job, see you later, I said, saying goodbye to Luffy. I didn't know whether to shake his hand or kiss him on the cheek, so I just bowed and left. And? Of Luffy. I arrived home somewhat tired, confused and full of questions. Ace opened the door for me, and I noticed that my grandfather was not there. Robin was in the dining room. I suppose they were both here together, were talking. Where have you been? Ace asked. Earn money, I want to sleep. I gave him my share of what I earned with Nami and went up to my room. Are you okay? Ace asked from below. Yes, I answered and then threw myself onto my bed. Of Ace. I picked up my cup of coffee and took a sip. My younger brother had arrived with money and was tired, which made me think about the job he was doing or had. What do you think is wrong with him? I asked Robin. He had come to leave us the email and bills he owed. I don't know, it's weird to see him so lost, she commented with some thought. I'm running late, if he's sick take him to the doctor, he's too stubborn to go of his own free will, I said to Robin, grabbed my things and said goodbye. Of course. Robin's pav. I went up to Luffy's room and knocked on the door. He didn't answer, so in order not to disturb him I went back down to the kitchen. He almost always wakes up if he smells food, so I could go buy something to prepare them. Hello, Makino greeted. I'm preparing the food, she said when she saw that he had nothing to say. Sure, I said as I went to the dining room. Wake up, Luffy, tell him there's meat, she mentioned. I sighed and headed back to the room. Perfect, I heard Luffy saying some things while he was asleep. Us. Apparently she was mumbling her friend's name. She sighed, somewhat tired. Luffy must learn not to make friends just because they see him cry. Even Ace has said something about that. Get up, I said to Luffy. What's wrong? He shifted in his sheets and stood up, feeling a little dizzy. There's some food, meat, I mentioned to cheer him up quickly. Yes? I asked, somewhat surprised. Yes, why were you muttering, Nami? Taking advantage of the fact that she was just waking up, I decided to ask about her dream. Nothing, for some reason I had that with her. Luffy got up and went down to the dining room, leaving me in the room with an expression of astonishment which I couldn't remove after hearing that. That? Luffy? Maybe he and she alone in a room, together, with nothing. He meant that kind of it. Luffy wasn't a boy, well he has that thing that everyone has, but I don't think he knows how to use it effectively. Chapter 21. Doubts. Luffy's pav. How are you? Makino asked as she served the food. Well, Makino, I have a question, I spoke to her somewhat nervously. Tell me, Makino replied with a smile. It's about having an intimate relationship with someone, I said as I looked at the table. I didn't even want to touch the food. Tell me, what doubts do you have? Makino sat down and without losing her smile, she prepared to listen to me. Well, the truth is I feel strange after having done it, I said somewhat nervously, trying to take a bite of my food. You mean she meant my pee. No, that's fine, I mean sentimentally, I always thought that doing it was with someone special, and having a moment when that has to happen. I don't know why I had that idea, was it wrong? Oh, I see. Yeah. Was it with a friend? I asked. Yes, what happens is that I think we are no longer friends, we are something different. What is there more than friendship? I asked, intrigued. I always thought that friendship was the bond. The courtship, when two people feel attraction both emotionally and physically, she said while comparing that to two pieces of meat. I see. Nami's pav. I was preparing something to eat, a dessert to start the night. Najiko hadn't arrived yet, so it could be a big surprise. However, when the door opened, Najiko entered with a somewhat furious aura. She had something in her hand and headed straight for me. I tried to calm her down, and we both went to the dining table while I left the stove on low heat. "What's wrong?" I asked when I saw my sister angry, sitting with some papers. I don't know if it was my grades or something worse. "You tell me," Nijiko said with a serious face. "What did I do?" I asked, somewhat confused. "Apparently you didn't calculate your betting expenses well and ended up overcharging the card we had, and now we have more credit debts." I was shocked by what he said. I took the note and looked at everything I supposedly owed. But I looked at the things and I couldn't help but feel a little sad for having misused the card. "Hotel, food, casino, what were you thinking?" My sister complained. I sighed and sat down. I wanted to explain everything. "Nami, I can't handle this. You'll pay off the credit card debt. I've been paying for the house for a long time. Did you leave something in the kitchen?" We both stopped to start smelling something that could only be described as burning. "Dessert? Oh no." I quickly ran to the kitchen, but the black smoke was getting thicker and thicker. "Nami." Nijiko's scream was the last thing I heard. "This is bad," I said while watching the firefighters put out the fire. Apparently the stove had a fault and the gas leak along with the slow fire caused everything to suddenly explode. According to that, it was all the dessert's fault. "Dad? We lost half the house, the insurance doesn't even cover half of it, and we're in debt," Nijiko said. She was sad, and now she honestly didn't want to know anything about the problems. "Damn," I said angrily. "What shall we do?" Nijiko asked. "Ask for help. I hope it doesn't cause you any problems," I said while looking at my cell phone, which was also in pieces. "Who?" she asked. "Luffy's Pav. You know I heard everything, right?" Robin said as she poured some water. "You're my friend, even though it's a bit awkward," I said nervously. Even though she could help me, this was something new for me, and I didn't want help, at least that's what I think. "Luffy, I'm mature enough to treat you the same even if you think otherwise," she smiled. The doorbell rang, and I got up to see who was knocking. "Nami." Nami and another girl were outside. She smiled nervously, and I didn't know what was happening. Chapter 22. Coexistence. "Can you repeat that?" Robin asked. "My house burned down, we're in some debt, and all I need is a place to sleep," I explained again, now feeling a little extra sorry for the fact that there was a woman I didn't know near Luffy and Robin. She looked a bit older. "Are you okay?" Luffy asked worriedly. "Yes, I didn't suffer much damage, although I don't know what we'll do now with the house," I said, trying to calm the situation. "Robin?" Luffy asked her for her opinion. "Let's see, I'll see what I can find in this house contract, maybe we can appeal to insurance." Robin was quite active in this matter, searching the internet for some way to help me. "That would be very helpful. I'll talk to my boss to see how he can help me," Nijiko commented to help Robin a little. "Perfect, I'll look for something that will give us support to ask for help from the insurance company and not get rejected," Robin added, pointing at something on the paper we rescued from the house. "Okay, I'll help you with everything I can," Nijiko commented. "Excellent, I'll get to it right now. Are you coming?" Robin stood up and asked Nijiko, who nodded. Sure. She got up and went after Robin. "What?" Luffy asked when he saw that I was staring at the winged girl next to him. "Nothing, who is she?" I asked directly. "She's Makino, she's our mother," Luffy said with his typical smile. "Technically a babysitter," corrected the girl, Makino. "Well, Luffy," I said with some nervousness. "Yeah? Could I stay here alone until my house is fixed?" I asked with a bow. "Sure, you can stay with me," he said without any problem, or at least I think he didn't even think anything bad or strange about being with me in his room. "Luffy, Ace doesn't have space, so I guess they'll share a room." Makino tried to make him see the situation he would get into, but Luffy reaffirmed. "Sure, I don't see any problem," he said again with certainty. "But, Makino, where do you sleep?" I asked where Luffy's nanny slept. "Don't worry about me, I don't usually sleep here," she said, getting up, picking up the plates and glasses and going to the kitchen. "Actually, Makino appears and disappears," Luffy commented with a smile. "Nami's Pav." I arrived at Luffy's room. It was a pretty clean place, probably because Makino was the one who cleaned it. Otherwise, this place would surely be a mess. I left my suitcases, or rather, my backpack with a few clothes that hadn't burned. "Do you want to buck?" "What?" I screamed in surprise. "Do you want to eat?" he said with a smile. Had I heard wrong? Am I thinking strange things? Hey. Is something wrong? Luffy approached and touched my forehead. I tried to hide my blush, but I think he wasn't observant enough to notice. "No, nothing, it's just that I must be tired," I said as I took a step back. "I'll prepare a mattress," Luffy said, searching in his closet. "Thanks, can I use your bed for the meantime?" I asked and then sat on it. "Sure," Luffy said. The afternoon came and I woke up. I had slept in Luffy's bed. I looked at my cell phone and had a couple of messages from my sister. Apparently she would stay with Robin to check things in the house and would inform me of news. "How long did I sleep?" I asked. Makino literally came out of nowhere and answered. Same as Luffy, she said as she stood up, carrying a small broom in her hand. Oh? I asked, confused. There, I point to the side of me. What? I looked and saw Luffy asleep with one hand holding my shirt. I'll leave in a while, you can make all the noise you want, just please leave the sheets, get Makino out of our room, your room, Luffy's room, this will be a complicated coexistence. Chapter 23. Known Unknowns. Nami's Pav. Even though she'd only been with Luffy for a few days, life was interesting with him. At first glance, Luffy wasn't the tidiest person in the world, but it clearly wasn't something a girl couldn't do. That sounded very sexist. Good morning, I greeted Luffy, who was sleeping peacefully. What time is it? Asked the man who was half asleep. Almost noon, I said, looking at my watch. He wrapped himself in his sheets. Oh well, he said. Get up. I yelled at him, pushing him. He got up and sat on his bed. Yes. Come on, I made some food. I told him to hurry up and get dressed. I'm going, Luffy said, putting on his shoes. He's so fast when it comes to food. How did you spend your time? Luffy asked. Good, I feel like I'm doing something productive now, I said with a smile. He laughed lightly. We both sat down to eat. Don't clean too much, you'll put me out of work, said Makino, who was taking her things to go shopping. Don't worry, I smiled nervously. How are you doing with the money? Luffy asked. I paid little, but now I'm a dishwasher, I replied, referring to my new job, which, although it paid little, allowed me to gradually pay off the debt. Listen, Luffy handed me an envelope. No, I don't want charity money, I said, rejecting him. He sighed. I appreciated Luffy's good generosity, but I wanted to solve my problems myself. Besides, he was already doing enough to help me. He was giving me a roof and helping me with things regarding my house. Thanks, but I must solve my problems by myself, he smiled. I felt happy that things were starting to improve. Even Luffy was thinking of working with me. A normal work day, Luffy was helping me with the dishes, although he didn't need the money due to his luck at the casino. In fact, he could partly accept the money, but it wouldn't be fair on my part. Luffy, put away this flour, the manager said. Luffy went to the register. We always had items that had expired underneath to exchange with the suppliers. After that, he returned with more dishes to wash. Silence everyone, hands up. A mugging. On my 5th day at work, what bad luck. What's happening now? Luffy asked, not caring about anything. He went out to see what it was about. It's a robbery, I said, stopping him from leaving the kitchen. However, one of the cashiers arrived with the money to hide it. Sometimes I think there are people who work thinking they'll inherit the place one day. Never do that stupid thing of putting on a shirt for a lousy job. What are you doing? I held his arm before he did anything stupid. I'm going to stop them, he said simply. No, I told him worriedly. Calm down, nothing will happen. He smiled at me and moved my hand so I could walk towards where the criminals were. No, I whispered to myself. Luffy. I walked over to where the cash register was. The guys pointed a gun at me. I raised my hands and said I'd open the register where the money was. They followed me with their guns. I went down to the cupboard. I grabbed some bags of flour and threw them at the guys. They shot and broke the bag, and the smoke made them start coughing. I jumped over the counter and ran toward the guy to tackle him. Damn bastard, with an agile movement I took his hand which held the weapon, I gave it a twist which made him drop it, and on top of that I twisted his arm. I used his partner as a shield. There were 3 guys. I reached the second guy, who nervously backed away and tripped over some things. However, when I turned around, the third guy was about to shoot me until. Get down. A guy came and hit the guy with a wooden stick before he realized it. Everyone at work was amazed. Are you okay? The boy asked. His hair was particularly colorful, like the green of the grass. Thanks for the help. The boy punched the guy lying on the ground before answering. My name is Zoro. Chapter 24. We're going to Mars. You can play the song in the section 1, we'll leave later. My name is Zoro. The guy who had helped me stop these guys introduced himself. I'm Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy introduced himself as if nothing had happened. Zoro left the stick belonging to one to reach for some things. The pleasure. Luffy smiled. Are you okay? I asked, somewhat shocked. After all, nothing seems normal when I'm Luffy. We do, they are another case, Zoro pointed out. I'll call the police, I said as I went to get the store's phone. Well, they dragged the assailants away and tied them up so they couldn't escape. Luffy. I see you have a lot of courage, Zoro commented as he tied up the last guy who tried to rob the place where Nami worked. My grandfather is very scary. These people are a bit pitiful, I said with a nervous laugh. I don't like seeing criminals. I mentioned this one, although his hair was particularly notable. His attitude was like that of a guy with few friends. I guess no one. Are you some kind of officer? I asked. You could even be a detective or one of the famous mercenaries, although I doubt one of those is after idiot criminals. No, I was just looking for a place, he mentioned without further ado. I looked at him, waiting for him to tell me the place. I got lost. He avoided my gaze. Docking lightly. Shut up. He said angrily, apparently he was a nice guy. So, you two arrested 3 armed men the officer mentioned. We both looked at him and responded. Yes, the officer finished aiming. Well, your community appreciates your service. He smiled at us and left. What place were you looking for? I asked about the incomplete topic that was left. I came looking for a place. I think it's Dracula's dojo. He mentioned this calmly. Nami approached us after the officer finished taking her testimony. That's on the other side of the city, I answered. Zoro remained thoughtful. The place will give you a plate of food for your help, Nami mentioned to Zoro. Thanks, no need, I have to get to the dojo. See you. We both watched as he took the opposite direction to the other side of the city. We spoke to him to make him stop. It's the other way. We pointed behind us. Zoro turned around and continued on his way. See you, Zoro. I said goodbye to him. Nami's pav. After that incident, the store gave me a few days off. With the money I'd saved, I was able to cover almost none of the debt. My sister and Robin had gotten the insurance company to cover the replacement of our things. That was more than I expected. Luffy, for his part. I want to ask you out. He had been asking me out for a few days, and my answer. Luffy, he leaves a job with him. It's not that I didn't want to, in fact I wanted to go out with him, but I had a lot more things on my mind than anything other than being able to solve my problems interested me, even if it sounds selfish. I mean, I lived here with Luffy, in his house which Makino cleaned sometimes. My job was to look for one and stay for just a few days until the pay, and then I left because I couldn't stand the work pressure. My studies were also consuming some of my time. Maybe going out with Luffy wasn't a good thing. I mean, I'm not spending time with him. I saw in a magazine that if I treat, I'll pay. Mention this one. I was having one of my days where this one was killing me. They're just ridiculous trends. I wouldn't feel right if you carried everything just because I couldn't afford my own tastes, I told him with a somewhat tired tone. I really wanted to scream about all my problems, but I didn't want him to see me so miserable. Even so, let me treat you to something, he insisted. I didn't blame him for wanting to go out, it's just that I really didn't. But after so many rejections, why not? Please, he said, taking my hands. Well, don't let it be anything extravagant. Although he didn't notice, I was holding back my tears. So many bad things accumulated, and the only good thing I had was him. He didn't deserve me to take out all my frustration on him. You can play the song now. From heaven everything is more beautiful. We both went to eat at a small place. The tables were outside, and the food was good. In fact, Luffy came to greet a friend of his brother, a very womanizing blonde. He apparently recognized Luffy and stopped bothering me. Let me take you to the stars again, like last night. After lunch, he took me to the city park. We walked around for a while and saw some small events with people entertaining the public. Children ran around, and I just watched the peace this whole environment gave me. Let's go to Mars, where no one will come looking for you or me. I was able to be happy for a short time, resting my head on Luffy's shoulders. He wrapped his arms around me to hug me. Where everything is quieter and lonelier for the two of us. After the walk to the park, we decided to walk along the streets. They were not so busy with cars, there were few people passing by to walk. Where there is no one but you and me. We reached a part where the music was quite loud. He approached me, and as we walked he decided to dance with me, although I felt a little embarrassed. With him everything was calmer. Let's leave the earth full of such shitty people who want to crush us. The song started to get slow, and even though there was no dance floor, just being near him made me feel so light. I looked into his eyes and he came closer to kiss me. Let's go on a trip to the stars and Mars to forget our burning problems. He carried me when my legs couldn't even go on walking. The laughter didn't stop, and neither did the sighs. Let us contemplate the constellations and all our visions that take away the emptiness we feel on Earth. We looked at the starry sky before arriving home. We didn't know anything about constellations, so we invented our own, even though I had some basic knowledge. Take my hand and let's get out of here. Put on your gray sweater and let's start running away. I love you. Those words made me smile. Feelings are so complicated, but something as clear as that couldn't be ignored. Let's go to Mars where no one will come looking for you. Not you, not me. That night ended with a slow, passionate kiss. Although in my mind, this whole thing could end with us lying in bed on sheets, he wasn't one to take that initiative. Even so, it was a fabulous night. Where everything is quieter and lonelier for the two of us, where there's no one but you and me. Chapter 25. Shuzmukr, Part 1. There's always a dead feeling and a broken heart, it's the meaning above, but since it was too long I put it in an acronym. Nami's POV. Returning to regular programming, I found myself looking at the debt receipts while Luffy was eating some chips. What do you think? I asked Luffy, who was looking at me from the couch. You are very pretty, he said with his smile. Not that, I'm talking about the accounts I showed in my papers. Luffy stood up and took a few and then told me. There are many, he said while looking at some. That's obvious, but I felt a little embarrassed to ask him for help. Which one bothers you? I asked, quickly pointing to the bill that I couldn't pay even with 2 or 3 jobs. This one here in the shot. I'll take care of this, and if another debt bothers you, let me know, he said. Thank you, I said. Luffy hugged me and turned me around and then gave me a kiss. Over the next few days, the account gradually decreased until I finally owed nothing, and that was a good thing for me because I could relax a little. Luffy, for his part, went to the casino and ended up winning some money. My sister managed to get some things reimbursed by the insurance, although it was all thanks to Robin who advocated for us, and although we couldn't return to our home, at least we already had a place to go to live. It's just a room, explained my sister, who already had keys to go to our home. What's up? I asked. I could be with her again. You stay with Luffy, she said. I couldn't say anything since those were her orders. Doesn't it bother you, or does it? I blushed slightly. I wanted to say that it didn't bother me, even though I thought maybe. Please, don't make me an ant yet. I quickly threw my sister's things. Shut up. I took him out of Luffy's house. Chapter 26. Shuzmaker, Part 2. There's always a dead feeling and a broken heart, it's the meaning above, but since it was too long I put it in an acronym. Nami's POV. Thank you very much. Is this enough for everything? I asked the lady, who smiled kindly. That's right, have a nice day. I was finally free, debts paid and extra money which I could finally use as I wished, at least as far as Luffy was concerned. We could go out to eat or do something together. It had been a few months, exactly 3 months, since I managed to pay everything and save a little money. Luffy was happy with my achievements, and that was something that made me feel very happy too. Luffy took me to dinner when I turned 4 months old. I love you, Nami. We've been dating these past few months and well, I've always followed your lead and I don't expect anything in return. I know it would sound hypocritical if I did things expecting a favor or something in return. I love you and I wanted to say it, that's all, Luffy explained with some nervousness. However, in the end he gave me his smile, which had been the calm in my days of torment. Luffy, I mentioned. I really owed him a lot and had to make things right with him just like he made things right with me. I just want to know if what I feel for you is the same, or at least if you feel something for me. She looked at me expectantly. I thought about my answer little by little, however I was convinced of what I felt. These have been the best months of my life, and maybe I have asked you for too much. Basically I am indebted to you, but I don't want you to feel that I love you just for that. Really, you are the best thing that could have happened to me. I said everything I had experienced during all this time of having known him. Although the life I had before was somewhat routine, it was to a certain extent fun, but nothing compared to what had happened these last few days. You've always been there for me, and I want to be there for you always, so I have no doubts in telling you that. Before I could tell her what I felt, a person came to where we were and interrupted us. Wait. It was a tall girl, with black hair and a well-accentuated body, drawing attention to the curves of her hips and earrings that were shaped like a snake. A taunt. Chapter 27. Married since birth. Luffy's POV, 7 years old. My name is Luffy. I introduced myself to the woman who looked at me in a strange way. Be more polite, she's a high society girl, Grandpa mentioned with a smile. Although he didn't know why he had taken me out of the house, Makino would prepare some chicken curry. Dirt? I asked, remembering the last word he said. The deity hit me so hard that my brain rebooted. We arrived at a huge house. It was white and had columns that were surrounded by snakes, which was very amazing. This is Luffy. I introduced myself to 3 girls, 2 of them were a little taller than the black-haired girl. Hello, they greeted, however a lady called it too and they left. What are you doing here? The girl asked. We came to play with you, my grandfather replied with a smile. My name is Hancock, that's how I met Hammock. She was a bit strange since she didn't really play much. She was a strange girl, not at all fun. She spent her time looking at me from a distance. It was somewhat strange and scary. You don't look like they described you, she would say sometimes. How? I asked while playing with the dirt. Well, they say that you will be the one who will stay with me, she mentioned. She didn't understand anything, but she enjoyed the food they gave here at the house. Yes, let's play, I answered and touched him. I ran away. I stopped when I saw that she was staring at her shirt. Now you bring it, I explained the game to him a little. What? She looked confused. Come on, have fun, he smiles. But do you know we're getting married? That word didn't make sense to me. I don't know what that is, but you have to chase me, I said, and then started running. Chase you? She asked with some confusion. Yes, that was how she understood a game for the first time in her life. You're weird. She chased me with a smile. Over time, her sisters and I started getting along. We went out, played, and I still wasn't sure what getting married meant. I just enjoyed the life I had and ate what I could. Luffy, 12 years old. Hello, Hancock, I greeted the woman who welcomed me into her house. Grandpa had said that it had been a while since he had spent time with her, so we decided to visit her to go shopping, although I didn't like that very much. "Hello, honey," she greeted. I was 12 years old, and my grandfather had already set me up with a girlfriend some time ago, whom I would be with and possibly marry. "You know I don't like it when you call me darling," I said, annoyed. It was always the same with her. "Sorry, love," he leaned over to hug me. "It's kind of weird, I don't want to get married yet," I said as I walked through the mall. "Well, it will be in the not too distant future," she mentioned. She really didn't know why she liked her. I'm not saying that she wasn't pretty, just that she didn't want to be called boyfriend or call someone girlfriend. But she continued with her shopping and as always ignored what I was trying to say. "What do you think of this?" I asked about some clothes. I tried to tell him that the color wasn't a good one. "Nice, isn't it? I'll buy it," but as always, he didn't listen to my opinion much. "Yes," I said while looking at a magazine, however when I opened it she took the magazine away from me because girls appeared in it. "What do you think our married life will be like?" he asked me after a while, not knowing why I did this thing of avoiding him talking to people, especially girls. "I'll go look at the shoes," I said as I stepped back slightly. "Sure," she said while looking at the clothes she was going to buy. Present. Wait. It was a tall girl, with black hair and a well-accentuated body, drawing attention to the curves of her hips and earrings that were shaped like a snake. A taunt. Seeing after years of being gone, she found me, although to say that I ran away is something. Chapter 28. Marriage. "Who is she?" the girl asked Luffy, with a somewhat hostile tone. She slowly approached me. "Hancock," Luffy mentioned somewhat nervously. "I'll ask again, who is she?" the girl said again. According to Luffy her name was Hancock and she was a woman who looked beautiful. "My name is Nami, I'm." Before I could introduce myself she interrupted me. "His lover? Don't you know that Luffy is engaged to me?" Homewrecker cat. "Luffy, what does this mean?" I looked at Luffy with annoyance that left me somewhat shocked. The truth is that I didn't know anything about it. "What?" I said, confused. "I'm not your husband," Luffy mentioned with a certain exhausted tone, as if he had repeated it many times. "You're my fiancé," she mentioned as she approached Luffy. That made me a little jealous, but for some reason it made me feel inferior, perhaps because of her beauty. "Just because my grandfather says so," Luffy said, pushing her away. "It's because you like me," she insisted, however Luffy pushed her away because of how insistent she was. "I don't like you," Luffy told her. She however didn't seem to want to hear anything about it. "You see them, you refuse just so you don't make the slut feel less." That made me quite angry and I was about to get serious with her. "Understand?" "Don't worry, I understand you." She stopped me in my tracks, made a gesture that calmed my anger for some reason. She looked beautiful from any profile. "Listen to me," Luffy said loudly. "She's my girlfriend, Nami. Let me introduce myself, girlfriend." Although that made me blush, it made the situation perhaps a little more tense than it already was. "I've always told you that I don't like that commitment. I don't feel anything for you," Luffy said dryly. "You're wrong, I like you." He made a gesture and it even made me doubt my sexuality. "I'm not wrong, you never listen, it's always you and only you." "I don't like you," Luffy told him directly, although I have to admit that if I liked girls, she wouldn't be something I would change for Luffy. "You lie," Hancock shouted, turning around and running somewhat dramatically. "Commitment?" I asked after everything had calmed down. "Yes, it was something my grandfather put into Hancock's head," he said with a somewhat exhausted, perhaps tired, mood. "So while I was in a certain dilemma, I noticed that it was starting to snow, the December season was approaching, and Christmas was near." "What a strange grandfather," I mentioned with a laugh. "Yeah, the thing is I never knew what marriage was until high school," he said, slowly coming back to his senses. "Wow, that must have been a surprise." I laughed lightly. "Yes," he smiled nervously. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked in a somewhat calmer mood. "Because marriage is a horrible thing, I don't like it." "Well, not if I have to marry Hancock," he said, giving me a quick glance. I see. I blushed a little since that meant that he wanted to marry me, but not me. "Did I say something wrong?" Luffy asked when he saw that there was silence after he said that. "I just think maybe you should talk to her." I mentioned being a little more empathetic with Hancock, who surely had real feelings for someone who would never reciprocate. "Should I?" the nervous man asked. "You must do it now," I ordered him. I saw him take his cell phone and dial a number. "Of Luffy." Hancock, I spoke even though I didn't know exactly what to say. "What do you want?" she asked in a rather cutting tone. "Let's meet," I mentioned, quickly hearing a strange scream. "When?" he asked in his normal tone. "I don't know, maybe tomorrow." I mentioned something nervous. "I'm on my way," she said as if nothing had happened, and before I could say anything to her. "And he hung up on me," I mentioned looking at my cell phone. It's always the same with her. Chapter 29. We break and begin. Of Luffy. I arrived at a coffee shop where I used to come after Arlong left and Mingo dismantled the place. There weren't many options to go get something to drink. It shouldn't take long to get here, I said to myself. Out of nowhere a boy came to sit at my table. "Who?" he asked. "Zoro," I mentioned, recognizing him, greeting him. "Hello. Luffy," I reminded him of my name. He nodded. "Sorry, I'm not very good at remembering names," he commented, shrugging without giving it any importance. "Don't worry, what are you doing here?" I asked. He shook his head. "Well, I was walking around town and noticed this place. They serve really good coffee." I mentioned this with a slight smile. "Zoro, maybe I don't know you well, but did you get lost?" I assumed that. He looked away. "You don't have to be ashamed. I used to have a bad sense of direction when I was a kid," I mentioned with a smile, sighing. "Yeah, well, we're not friends, so it's not like I should tell you everything even though we didn't know each other at all. I think I could trust him because he didn't seem like a bad person. We can be friends, we already know each other's names. In fact, you're my friend," I said, smiling. "I ordered a coffee for both of us," he sighed. "Don't make decisions for me," he said, although he ended up accepting the coffee. "It's decided." We both clinked our cups. One way or the other. Hancock didn't arrive on time, which wasn't normal by her own standards, since whenever she mentioned a time and date she was always punctual. I decided to wait a little longer, but there was no sign of her. I decided to send her a message, but I didn't even see it. What do I do now? I decided to leave. I had made the attempt anyway, and it was then that I realized something. Of Luffy. Nami wasn't answering her phone. That was already a bad sign. However, I didn't want to get any bad ideas. Hancock was many things, but she wasn't a girl who, well, if things weren't looking good, I was very clear about that, but I wanted to be positive about what was happening. Zoro, on the other hand, was following me. Don't ask me his reasons or why, he just does that. "Where are we going?" Zoro asked, running beside me. "To save my girlfriend," I exclaimed, somewhat terrified. "What's wrong with her?" "The girl is going to hurt him." Things were really getting complicated. "How are you going to help her?" I stopped dead in my tracks when I heard the question. "It's true." "Wait, you're running without knowing where, you don't have a plan, and you stop to think about all this now?" He looked at me confused. "Yes, let's see, Hancock would summon her to a classroom, her sisters wouldn't get involved because they're busy." I thought about what she would do. I don't think she would go that far, she knew her, at least that's what I think. "Maybe a coffee shop in the city," I mentioned. Zoro thought about it and shook his head. "Very cliché." "A bar?" I tried again. "That would be weird." He was right. Two girls walk into a bar. It sounds like the story about the father who walks into a bar for a favor. Reference to the Netflix series Lucifer. "The clothing store?" I mentioned again. "No, it's a public place." Zoro looked at me and I at him. There was no way they were going to buy clothes just because. "They could be anywhere," he said, upset. There was no way of knowing where they would go. "Wait, she sent me a message." My cell phone had rang and I looked at a message from my girlfriend. "What does it say?" "Nothing, it's just a location." When I pressed I noticed that it was somewhat far from where I was. "Where to?" "Nami's Pav." So Hancock Boa. After sending a message to Luffy, she was in place. She had been brought by Hancock. "Nami, what did you do with Luffy?" she asked as she sat down. "Well, I guess you know him a little more than I do. I really didn't do much for him, just it's not like saying it, he always, well, if I put it in retrospect, the truth is that he has always helped me." "How?" She seemed interested in knowing what was happening between Luffy and me. "You see, to start with, my place of work was bought, I lost my job, I went drinking, I owed money, my house burned down, and my sister seems to be drifting further and further away from me." She didn't flinch at all. "And I suppose Luffy helped you with various expenses?" "No, well, just one. I worked to cover most of the expenses and be able to live, but I can't deny that he helped me with many things. After all, I think we agree that he is a good person." She nodded at the last thing he had said. "He is more than a good person, he is different from everyone else, unique, his smile is so motivating, his words, even if they are nonsense, always try to encourage one. Many qualities cannot fit in a single person." Although his words were nice, his body expressions were somewhat strange, as if something touched her every time she thought of Luffy. "Do you love him?" "More than my life," she declared. "But does he love you?" I questioned him. "He does it in his own way, and even though he doesn't see me as his wife or girlfriend romantically, I know he appreciates me." She looked down. "You don't like the term that comes before girlfriend?" "No, it hurts me that he sees me only as that, when my heart and my being see him as my everything, and I truly want to be his everything." She was completely in love. "You?" "No, I'm not crazy, not so much. I've achieved many things for myself and for me, but I can't just continue like this. I've always wanted to share my achievements with him. I truly love him. I would understand if he wanted to be with someone other than me." That relieved me a little. "So?" That I understand it doesn't mean that I approve of it or that I accept it or even that I like it. I understand there's no need to get upset. I felt enormous fear. I'll be honest, if it were up to me I would have made you an offer as long as you stayed away from him. Chapter 30. Geographical Love, Final. I'll be honest, if it were all up to me I would have made you an offer as long as you stay away from him, Hancock mentioned with a smile. She was a little nervous about the direction the conversation was going. I think you know I wouldn't accept that, I said with a somewhat more confident attitude. Surely he was just trying to intimidate me. I know, but I know that everyone has a price for which they would do anything. I won't do anything I don't want to, I said, something annoyed. Maybe I really believed his words. Do you love him? Yes, I know you are a powerful woman and you think you can have everything you want, but getting away from Luffy is something that not even with all the money I could achieve, I said, annoyed. She looked at me somewhat impressed. Surely she didn't expect this attitude from me. Nami, I guess you know about yourself. There's nothing in my past you can use, I mentioned, getting up from my seat. Not even what I mentioned with your parents, I looked at him confused. Bellamere is my mother, Najiko is my sister, I said to open the door and leave, but she spoke to me. Yes, but the biological ones, your real parents. You know you're adopted, and I know who your real parents are. That certainly left me perplexed. I did have some knowledge about it, but I don't mind. So, what do I tell your parents? I looked at him in shock. I'll tell them that you'll see them, that you're excited, and you just tell Luffy that nothing happened here, that you're going on a trip, never come back and be happy. She stood up, and while she was talking she approached me with a smile. An account with good money and parents who are excited to be able to see their lost daughter. Those words were like a knife pressing against my neck. How do I know this isn't a trick? I asked quickly. I wouldn't do anything to hurt you, because that hurts Luffy, so if I make you happy I'll make Luffy happy. It wouldn't cost you anything to call him and tell him something about what happened. If this was a trap that was logical, taking me out by force was bad for her. Luffy wouldn't forgive her. I moved everything I have to find your parents, a favor in exchange for you getting out of Luffy's life, she mentioned with a smile. A laugh escaped from her. But what happened with accepting? Understand, Nami, I can understand that Luffy likes you, but I can't accept it, she said, cornering me against the door. You're crazy. Crazy in love with a man that no one else will have, she smiled. Luffy. I'm here. I burst into Hancock's suite. Hello, Luffy, she greeted with a smile. Nami greeted her in the same way. They both drank some tea. Hancock. Is something wrong, Luffy? Nami asked normally. I got a message, I pointed at my cell phone. Yes, I wanted you to know that I would be with Hancock today. Sorry for standing you up, she mentioned apologetically. Nothing's wrong, is everything okay? Yeah, you never mentioned that Hancock was a great person. Hancock smiled and looked at me with that look. It wasn't necessary, I said, smiling. Well, shall we go? She said. Of course. Nami's pav. What did he say to you? Luffy asked. I could see in his eyes that he was worried. Not much, it was all about you, I mentioned, trying not to sound suspicious. That's all he likes to talk about, Luffy said, laughing slightly. Why are you so upset? I asked in a normal tone. Well, I guess I thought she would do something. Don't worry, it's not some kind of soap opera from the 2000s, I mentioned without much importance. No, that's a relief. Well, why don't we leave our date for tomorrow? I said with some enthusiasm. That seems fine to me. Luffy. After saying goodbye to Nami, I was determined to go with Hancock. That look was something I'd seen many times. From children to teenagers, and now. I arrived at Hancock's suite. Is something wrong? She asked. I don't like you, I wanted to tell you that even though you've spent a lot of time doing everything, I don't feel anything for you. You're just my friend, I like Nami, and I want for you to accept it, I said directly. She was somewhat surprised. It's too soon, don't you think? Not for me, I don't know what you've done, but I know she won't be able to do much, but you can't stop me from looking for her, I told him. It wasn't a warning, it was just some information he should know. Luffy, I understand that, but I want you to know that here with me, you will have much more than what that one can offer you, she said with a pleading tone. It's Nami, no, that one. I understand, but why others and not me? I asked, intrigued. She was just a friend, I couldn't even call her good. Because I don't like you, it's simple, I would stop talking to you, and I know you would cry, so I want you to understand that you can't control my life, my grandfather does, and I don't like it. She looked at me, that expression of disbelief. What makes you think I've done anything? I asked with some wit. I know you well, I know you do bad things that seem good, but in the end everything affects me. No friends, no girlfriends, difficult life. I want control of what I want. You are not into that. I explained things to her as I saw them. If she was able to understand it, that was something that only she would know. I thanked her and left. I didn't know what I had said to Nami, but whatever it was, it couldn't be good. I called Nami, but she wasn't answering her phone. I looked for her at home, but no luck. I asked Najiko and Robin, but nothing. Her last message was just her location. I tried to remember something. Maybe she mentioned something to me in the conversation. She could be anywhere, on a bus, on a plane that is, if she was thinking of leaving the city. What did you do, Hancock? I had no luck at any time of day, I spoke to many people, but no one had seen her. Nami's Pav. I lived in a new home, I lost contact with Najiko, now I was certainly happy, my parents explained to me what had happened in the past, I lived and worked with them during these years. They died today, what a drastic change, but they left me a message, one that, despite being beautiful, still reminds me that maybe I made a bad decision. I could have been happy without knowing them, but they also deserved to know I was okay. Now they've left with that in mind. It comforts me a little. I would have liked to communicate with Luffy, but now I have to work. Luffy. What's wrong? Asked a guy, he had letters tattooed on his hand. I've heard about you, I mentioned something nervous. Yes, many come with that premise, I comment. I want you to find someone. I showed him a picture of Nami. What's it called? Law was a guy who could do everything, he was a doctor as a professional, but he was known for other practices. We worked together for a while searching for Nami. It was hard to believe there was no trace of her. It's a vast world, but it wasn't impossible to locate someone. I spent part of those 3 years searching for her, Hancock didn't tell me anything during that time, and I continued with her, ideally I thought she was dead, but something told me that wasn't possible. It was still hard to believe that she wouldn't contact me, but knowing Hancock, maybe I didn't want to think about it that way. Tell me, Luffy. A boy was sitting looking at the vast horizon in front of him. What's wrong, Law? Luffy responded to the young man who stood out for the absence of an arm. Is this what you wanted? Law asked as he placed his right hand on his left shoulder, looking at his partner. Yes, Luffy replied. Was it worth it? I asked, intrigued. Luffy smiled slightly. I will know in due time, he said. Luffy got up and took his things, Law sighed, and with Luffy's help, they both walked away from that place, a huge ocean with mountains that gave him an incredible view. Nice to meet you, Luffy. Law said goodbye to his friend. Likewise, Law, thanks for everything. Luffy smiled and they both bumped fists. Luffy. I had arrived at an island called Fuchsia, I walked towards a shop, there were a few things, and I greeted the person who was serving. Hello. What's up, young man? The lady at the store asked me. I came looking for this girl. Oh, right, she must be in the field. I point to the field that was a few meters from where I was. Thank you. Male. Nami's Pav. The day is going to be a great day, I said as I looked at the state of my tangerine fields. US. I heard a scream in the distance. When I looked I saw a guy dressed somewhat elegantly, he was coming with a hat and signaling me to go towards him. It just can't be. I came for you. They say love can make you do stupid things, but true love makes you go to the ends of the earth just to see the person you'll be with for the rest of your life. Maybe that's too exaggerated and few people live that extraordinary dream, but believe me, it's perhaps one of the most beautiful experiences you'll ever have. Living that dream is a dream, one that makes your feet rise, makes you feel like heaven is closer to your toes than it really is. Years passed and I didn't realize it, how much I missed having someone by my side. I'm not saying I can't be alone, just that maybe, at some point, one thinks about sharing ideas, one's future, and part of one's life with someone. Maybe I'm not well and just dependent, but on my own, I've achieved things I never thought possible. I miss my sister a lot and the people I knew, but out of all those people, I miss only one. Luffy. Maybe it's too much just to travel so many places just for one person, a normal person would have left this one a long time ago, would have made a new life, but Luffy was not a normal person. At the end of it all he looked for me in many places, I can't imagine how much time he invested, how much money he used, and above all how much he would have suffered by not hearing any news from me. Hancock is someone to be feared, but he can't do anything else now, because Luffy is the one who looked for me, although I could have left him a note, but I didn't want to try my luck with that woman. Whatever the case, he had gotten to where I was, that was the important thing after all. I put aside any problems I had at that moment, so I focused on the only thing that really mattered. How's that? I moved mountains, well, something like that, he said with a smile. I missed you so much. And you. I have so much to tell you, I said with tears in my eyes. I have a lot of time, he said happily, giving me a smile I didn't know I missed so much. Life is weird, and I truly appreciate that. Normality can become boring, and I feel like everything I've been through all this time is something I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. After all, it's thanks to all that I was able to meet Luffy. Love is weird, complicated, and sometimes even irritating, but ultimately, it's a beautiful feeling. This was my love story that led Luffy to find me. A geographical love. Well, as you know, I don't really like to interrupt my stories, since I feel like it loses a lot of the magic. But I wanted to tell you that if you'd like to read more One Piece related stories, I already have a list of my stories where you can read them. Also, if you're a fan of Avatar, I have a list with my saga and alternate universes. Enjoy my stories, and any comments are welcome. Follow me for more stories and don't forget your vote, it helps me a lot to continue and to be better known. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching, if you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day, bye.